Hello everybody and welcome to Forever Motorsports on Forever Sports for this, the F1 podcast. You're joined by Reese and myself, Mark, of course. And title of the video, and I think one of the first topics that we will be speaking about today. Of course, we'll get into a whole lot of other things, but we do the show every week. Title, Ferrari are done. I think that's pretty much for the season in terms of whether they can compete anywhere after yesterday's result. I think they're pretty much firmly out of the race. It's going to be very, very difficult for them to get back in.
Yeah, they were beaten by Williams. That is certainly unexpected. At this point in the season, we expected them to have a little bit more pace off the back of last season where they were extremely confident. And what has happened to Ferrari?
Yeah, one does have to go and ask the question, what on earth has happened to Ferrari? Because, surely we were expecting them to do relatively okay this weekend. Because there was a little bit of chats. They started making some improvements the last few weekends. In Canada and Austria, that made some significant gains. In qualifying, they'd done all right. Granted, the McLaren was way ahead of them, but they'd done all right in qualifying. Good enough to certainly go and fight it out near the top. But then come to the race, and strategy once again falls through the floor. But not only that, their pace was just so slow.
Yeah, it was a circuit that I expected to play into Ferrari's hands. I thought they were going to be quite competitive and possibly be more competitive than the rest of the grid, excluding the Red Bull. I say Red Bull because it's just Max, really. Sergio Perez also not having a great weekend. We'll definitely be talking about him and what is going to happen in that sister Red Bull seat. Still a lot of speculation about Sergio Perez's place in Formula One, or certainly in that Red Bull seat. Though, back to Ferrari, why do you think they are struggling? I've got a couple thoughts of my own as to why they are struggling. But give me your thoughts, Mark.
It's strategy. I think is a big problem for them. They just never seem to get that underway. And even like yesterday, I think I laughed about it so much whilst we were doing the stream. But I suppose it does sort of sum it up because clearly they're thinking probably way too much with regards to strategy, and they're just not going with a basic option. Carlos Sainz came onto the radio and said, we're thinking we're going to go switch to Plan B, and he said, well, what's Plan B again? How many plans do they have that they have to think about? The number, as he forgets just the second idea.
I think we've seen in the past they've gone to like Plan E and F. So I think, as Carlos Sainz said, I think earlier in this season, he said, stop inventing. And they need to just use more traditional strategies and stop trying to make up places in the strategy and just do the talking on the track. Of course, you can make a bit of a leapfrog in the pits, but sure, make a good call, but don't do stupid things like they did yesterday where they boxed them so early and then just left them high and dry on a set of hards when there was a safety car. I understand it can give you track position, but you can calculate that, and they could have seen that it wasn't going to work.
Yeah, it is a very, very, very odd one. Also, we didn't even really get to talk about Charles Leclerc yesterday and where he finished up.
No, he was just lost.
Yeah, It's a bit of a problem. Other things that, of course, happened yesterday, just very quickly, I suppose we can go on to that. And we'll come back to Ferrari and otherwise. But as Beast was telling me about, it's been doing the media runs and being on the news this past day, I suppose. That is with regards to Cara Delevingne and
yes.
Martin Brundle and their little exchange that they had on the grid beforehand. And I think, as Martin does make reference to when he goes and meets with her, he says, when you're on the grid, you have to be talked to, you have to expect. And I think that's my biggest thing with regards to yesterday, is if you are going to be on the Formula One grid, do your due diligence and learn about the fact that this is what happens in the sport.
I don't think it even goes as far as to be, you're on the grid, be a nice person. No, you're a celebrity in the public eye. You've got cameras all around you who are going to, at some point, ask you a question. Be nice. You're a public figure. And be nice. It doesn't cost you anything to be a nice person.
Exactly, and not just that. I think it's also just stupid. You're going into a sport. You've got to be understanding that for the 20 minutes or so that you are on that grid, is that you are now, as you say, in the public eye. You are actually now representing your brand. which means that
Yes.
if somebody comes up to you, you've got to put on the smile. Even if you don't want to, I know it's horrible if you don't want to get interviewed. I can understand that, not wanting to necessarily be interviewed. But I promise you, nobody watching Formula One is watching for you. So they're probably not going to be that long of an interview. I mean, as one of my mates said and one of our friends said on our group with regards to the instance, says it doesn't really take that much to smile and say, I think Lewis Hamilton will win today. And then he'll carry on and Martin Brundle will move on. You go, oh, who really cares? But nobody thinks about it. Now it's been torn into this massive story with Cara Delevingne ignoring him and then clashing back and Martin Brundle this and savagery and all these stupid things. It's been turned into some big old story just because you couldn't simply say hello and yeah, I think
and give your predictions for the race. Go, hello, thank you for coming to me. I'm supporting Lewis Hamilton today. Have a great race. It costs you nothing. Really.
I promise you, Martin Brundle was not going to ask you, what do you make of McLaren's upgrades this weekend? I don't think she was going to get asked
political views. No, she wasn't going to get asked candid questions here. I mean, he doesn't ask terrible things like that. He is a great commentator. Of course, he was a brilliant driver as well, and now has gone into commentary. And it's always been a staple of Formula One to have him on the grid, and he is so well known for that. If you're someone walking into pretty much his workspace, because he's there every race weekend on the grid, you should be prepared.
Well, exactly that. I think, if you're going to go and do the whole high life thing, celebrities love to make themselves known on the F1 grid. It's like the famous place. It's like being seen on the red carpet. It's the same concept when it comes to Formula One. If you're going to go and do it, do your due diligence of 5 minutes of research and understand what to expect when you're going to go onto it. And you need to recognize that face, because ultimately that is the face of the grid when he goes around. Martin Brundle is who everybody knows when you go and look at that grid. So very, very stupid from her, but anyway.
One thing it certainly tells me about Cara Delevingne is that she's never watched Formula One before, because if she had, she would have known that happens before a race, and she would have been prepared and not made a fool of herself.
Exactly that. Anyway, we move on because we don't really talk about celebrities much on this channel. We're talking Formula One, and the only news that we've really got to bring with you, except for one big piece of information, which we will get to, and that's a little bit of not a big secret, but we will get to that. I think it's pretty much just the Grand Prix that's happened, obviously, over the weekend, the British Grand Prix. And Christian Horner had hailed the Red Bull team, this is on Sky Sports, after equaling the F1 record for most consecutive wins. Don't, of course, forget that. They managed to beat that there. So they've now got a record, 11th in a row. Yeah, 11 wins in a row for Red Bull.
I mean, absolutely brilliant for them. If they hadn't let the Mercedes win in, I think it was, just trying to think now, in
Brazil, I think, wasn't it?
Brazil, yes, it was Brazil. They would have had 20-something races in a row now. I mean, just so dominant from them. But, I mean, we don't want to see them winning for 11 races in a row. We want to see someone else being able to take that podium position and that top spot on the podium. Certainly a driver that does look quite competitive, hopefully going throughout the rest of the season, is Lando Norris and those McLarens.
Yeah, I was going to say.
Very impressed from their pace this weekend.
Well, I mean,
extremely impressed, though, by the rookie Oscar Piastri as well.
Exactly. I mean, it's the fact that out of nowhere, McLaren weren't just competing at the top there. I mean, Max Verstappen had to work for that victory. It was not a landslide victory at all for Max Verstappen. He didn't win by, several, as we've seen in the past, 20 plus seconds, and you could take a pit stop before getting there. He only beat Lando Norris, but I think it was still 5 seconds in the end.
I mean, we have to remember there was a safety car, so it's not perfectly indicative, but I mean, still, it's what we want to see. We don't want to see the Red Bulls miles and miles ahead. It's better to see them actually having some competition, especially into the first corner. That was so exciting. We had almost 3 cars abreast. We had 2, though, with Lando and Max. Lando getting the better of Max Verstappen at the start. As I did say, though, before the race, Max is a little bit more tentative on the starts, which we definitely saw. Oscar Piastri also almost getting around him. That would have been amazing if we had 2 McLarens in the lead and Max really having to fight his way through them. That would have been incredible. Maybe still to come, though, this season.
I still just can't get over the fact that McLaren, out of literally the beginning of the season, Zach Brown was being talked about as somebody who needs to go, and everybody's been going after the guy and the whole team and saying McLaren are garbage. How could they have created such a bad car? And it was a terrible car. But how have they just managed to just change it like this? And now suddenly, I'm sorry, they were quicker in pace easily than the Ferraris yesterday. They were quicker than the Mercedes. They were quicker than the Aston Martins. They were easily the second quickest team on the grid yesterday. And
Oh, they weren't easily. They, were firmly
yeah,
the second best team on the grid, possibly getting very, very close to that Red Bull. I mean, in qualifying, it was relatively evenly matched, which I did not think I would be saying with that Red Bull car being so dominant.
and of course, Sergio Perez did not have a great race yesterday, starting in 15th. He did manage to make his way up the grid, of course, like he did in Austria, but not nearly as high as he had managed in Austria. Yet again, a terrible weekend, really, for him, not finishing on the podium yet again. In this season, and as somebody in our comments has asked, or Tsitsida, or I don't know, I have no idea. 3301, that one, and saying, do you think Charles can potentially move to Red Bull? Now, I think you have your answer. I have my answer. You go with yours first.
Short and sweet, or do you want me to give a long explanation?
Short and sweet, and then a medium explanation.
No, that's the short explanation. Medium explanation is I don't think it's going to happen because they're both number one drivers. They will want to be number one drivers at their team. Max has a number one driver policy kind of written into his contract that he will be the number one driver at any team that he is in. So we don't expect someone as strong as Charles Leclerc to come into that team. Whether Charles will be able to even challenge Red Bull or challenge Max in his own team, that is highly unlikely.
Yeah, I mean, we'll have to see what happens with regards to contracts and things because we are now finally starting to get into silly season. We've got 2 more Grand Prix before that big break. And that big break, we're already seeing talk, and that's what I was going to get to. Our major topic outside of the fact that Ferrari are just not looking very good at all is the fact that Nick de Vries, it looks like his Formula One season is over.
Done.
Yeah.
Formula One season, his Formula One career is certainly over. I mean, I'm very disappointed. I am a big Nick de Vries fan, not ashamed to say it, but so disappointed in him this season. I mean, he had a brilliant standout race last year in that Williams car when he stepped in for Alex Albon in where was it? I wanted to say Imola, but it wasn't. It was in Monza, where he stood in for Alex Albon, who had appendicitis at the time, and he was able to get into the points. I mean, everyone was so impressed with him, which is why the Red Bull team were quick to snap him up from Mercedes because he is fundamentally a Mercedes driver. He has been for a multitude of years, and he got swept away by the Red Bull team and just has not had a good start, has not been able to find his feet at all in that AlphaTauri team. No. And it's been quite disappointing.
And I think, look, I don't think his F1 career is completely over yet. I mean,
I think it is, unfortunately.
But we'll go back to that. But it's certainly his season's done. I mean, so we've got Sky Sports Germany and also Ralf Schumacher giving their opinions on the things. And he's basically said that Ralf Schumacher's claimed that AlphaTauri have already decided to part ways with Nick de Vries and that Daniel Ricciardo, of course, reserve driver for the Red Bull teams, will finish the season off with the AlphaTauri team. So de Vries has yet to score a point in F1, and Sky Sports Germany expert Schumacher thinks the Dutchman will be axed before his home race in August, which is the first event after the summer break. That would see his first full season in the sport ended after half of the year, and it's claimed Red Bull reserve Ricciardo would take his spot. Schumacher had this to say. He said, the decision has been made. I'm pretty sure. He did it well, had his highlight in Monza last year, and was in his right place at the right time. It's a shame for him that he probably can't... Yeah?
I like that he says, I'm sure that he is going to be replaced, I think.
No, he says the decision has been made. I'm pretty sure. Yeah. It's a shame for him that he probably can't drive Zandvoort, I would guess. But also good for Daniel Ricciardo and for the team. AlphaTauri is really bad on the road and could use a little experience. Nothing is fixed, but everything is possible. So it does look like Nick de Vries. I mean, this is not the only report that's come out about him. It looks like he is gone.
So what I've heard in the rumor mill, at least the Formula One rumor mill, which is always turning and always very, very busy. Of course, there's always so much drama surrounding Formula One. What I've heard is that Daniel Ricciardo has a Pirelli test this upcoming week with Red Bull. Based on his performance in that Pirelli test, they're going to make a decision.
I'm sure you probably will see Nick de Vries drop out because it's too many races without him doing anything. And we know Daniel Ricciardo's been there and done that. Yeah.
And they're very, very far back in the points for Constructors' Championship at the moment. And every single point is millions of dollars. So they'll be wanting to to get as many points as possible. If that means sacrificing Nick de Vries for a season, so be it. I think they need to be able to afford to keep developing that car and to keep that team afloat. I mean, there is a lot of rumors also going around that they're going to be wanting to sell that team. So yeah,
Yeah,
we're going to have to wait and see what happens.
It's going to be interesting. Although seeing Daniel Ricciardo back in an F1 seat, I think would be better for Formula One than having Nick de Vries there, because also apart from anything else, I know it's not what you should judge sportsmen on. They're there to drive, but unfortunately Nick de Vries is struggling with the driving aspect, and he doesn't bring anything else. He's not an interesting personality on the grid. He doesn't chat. He doesn't like to be seen in the media. Nobody really knows who he is or what he does. All they know is that he's been disappointing this season, and at least having Daniel Ricciardo back, even if he doesn't do as better than Nick de Vries, you've got someone there who's going to help Formula One. He's a good ambassador for Formula One to have back on the grid. So yeah, it's
I mean, that's very true that you say that, because, I mean, if you think about all the drivers down the grid, George Russell, Lewis Hamilton, Max Verstappen even, they all have I want to say offline persona, but an off-track persona. They still engage with their fans. Nick de Vries, he doesn't necessarily seem to have that engagement with the fan base of Formula One, and he does get a little bit lost down the back of the grid. And with him underperforming, it's just getting a lot of criticism from the fans at the moment to put a driver in that they actually prefer and want to see in the sport.
I mean, Yuki Tsunoda and Daniel Ricciardo in the same team is certainly going to be very, very interesting. You're going to have one of the most, you're going to have one of the most happy and joyful Formula One drivers we've ever had on the grid, next to what is essentially a very, very angry Japanese man in Yuki Tsunoda, who is still so, I thought it would fix the season, but still so immature, just shouts at everybody at any given stage of the day. I mean, it's hilarious.
Yeah, I mean, he's certainly, as much as we say Nick de Vries isn't a personality, Yuki's a massive personality and makes up for when Nick de Vries doesn't have any personality. I mean, Yuki is so animated on the radio, albeit the team doesn't necessarily enjoy it. We enjoy it from our side because it's quite funny to laugh at times. But yeah, we'll have to see whether they will swap him out with Danny Rick. I certainly hope so. As much as I do like Nick de Vries, he squandered that season a little bit, unfortunately.
Yeah, now McLaren, of course, did unbelievably well yesterday. It's very unfortunate for Oscar Piastri. Pretty much, I think the only reason why he didn't finish on the podium alongside his teammate Lando Norris and Hamilton finishing ahead of him was due to that safety car, and Piastri just unfortunately getting screwed over a little bit by that, because Hamilton managed to time it. Well, he didn't obviously time it necessarily. It just happened perfectly for him to come into the pits and make use of that virtual that then became safety car.
Well, Piastri did drive past the pits. Actually, sorry, no, I
yeah, as I say, I'm
wrong. He pitted previously, and then
Piastri unfortunately had it was literally at the pit window, and Piastri dove into the pits, and literally like a lap after that, we then saw the safety car come out, and that was horrible for Piastri. He lost so much time as a result.
I mean, it would have been the rookie's first ever Formula One podium. I mean, to get a podium in your rookie season is pretty unheard of. I mean, it just shows his true talent to be able to put that McLaren up so high and match his teammates in qualifying, as well as being able to stick with him throughout the race. He drove so well yesterday, and I certainly believed he deserved that podium spot, but still very happy for the British fans to have gotten Lewis Hamilton on the podium.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, Lewis Hamilton's not going to be complaining. He managed to get onto the podium. But yeah, as somebody's gone and asked in the comments, and we did have our say about this in the stream yesterday, the live stream, of course, when we did the Formula One. But it's asking, why did Lance Stroll not give the position back when he clearly overtook Gasly from the outside? And well, our position on this is very clear, because he wasn't on the outside; he was pushed off the track by Gasly, which is why, that's
interesting that we say that now, because I remember now watching, I think it was Carlos Sainz ever so slightly nudged Gasly, and Gasly just lost it with Sainz after the race in the press area. He walked past him and said, "Don't push me like that, Carlos." Because they went through, I think it was Cops at the time. Yes, it was Cops. And they were wheel by wheel, and ever so slightly nudged wheels didn't take either car off the track or affect them at all. But Gasly was not impressed at all. Very hypocritical of him after pushing Stroll wide.
Yeah, I mean, he pushed Stroll off the track essentially because Stroll was alongside him and more than halfway up the car's breadth, which
Yes,
means that you
they
got to
were
give
completely
space.
side to side.
You've got to give space to him, and Lance Stroll was waved off. So that's why we saw Gasly and Lance Stroll allowed to stay there because Gasly then, they looked at it, and yes, black and white flags were waved for Lance Stroll because he went off the track ever so slightly, but they knew that they couldn't do anything else. So it was like a sort of mix of the two. And also, karma does come back to Pierre Gasly. Of course, both Alpines did not finish the race. So I think, the Formula One spirit said, you know what, unfortunately, it's exactly how it works.
Yeah, I mean, karma comes back to bite you sometimes in the bum, and it certainly did with Gasly. He wasn't able to get past Carlos Sainz on a set of old hards, but I mean, damage limitations from those Ferraris yesterday, finishing, I think it was 9th and 10th, wasn't it, Mark?
Yeah, they finished so far down the grid, we don't even really care about Ferrari. I mean, it was, yeah, just such a horrid day for the red team. And we thought that they'd finally be able to get back into winning ways, or at least into podium positions and fighting it out near the top. And just not again. So, yeah.
Yeah, it's a bit disappointing. I didn't give my reason as to why I think Ferrari are struggling this season. I think it's because they've had a shift of ownership, of course, with the new team boss. It does upset, I think, the entire order of things
But it was
throughout the
even
team.
worse last season.
Well, I know that, but I mean, you've changed from Mattia Binotto to Frederic Vasseur, and he's making major changes in Ferrari, not only for the next 2 to 3 years, but for the next 10, 15, 20 years, because he's looking at mechanics to sign in the future. He's looking at up and coming engineers that he wants to sign who may be involved in other teams, but he doesn't care. He's trying to lock them down for the future and try get Ferrari back to their winning ways, which is what everyone really wants. The entire sport actually needs it because Ferrari are the bloodline of Formula One. They have been there since the beginning, and we don't want to see them falling back. We want to see them fighting for championships.
So, I mean, essentially our question for the stream was, are Ferrari going to be able to compete at any point during the season, or is their season done?
I mean, we don't know. We can always see Ferrari being able to turn things around like McLaren have been able to do. I have an article here, though, just talking about Andrea Stella's opinion as to why they've been able to make that big turnaround. It's because they have gotten a little bit of inspiration from that Red Bull car, but it isn't fundamentally a Red Bull McLaren. It is still their own car, but it shows how teams are able to just take inspiration from another team, like Aston Martin did this season, and be able to jump up the order. Hopefully, Ferrari just ditch this fact that they have to stick with what they have and start thinking outside the box and just getting up the grid. We don't want to see them falling back, which is what they're doing at the moment. If they keep going the way that they are, they're going to be a midfield team,
No, and
which
another
is not what we want.
No, not at all. And another team that I suppose we haven't talked about much, and it's very depressing not to talk about them much because they've gained so many fans, is Aston Martin, of course, who also seem to be really struggling again. This last 3-4 Grand Prix now have been rather poor for the Green Machine. Yes, Alonso did all right yesterday, finished near the top five, and I think where did he? Was it sixth? I think he might finished. Or was it fifth position? I think it was just ahead of Perez. I think.
I
But
will let you know in a second.
it's all right. If before we started the season we looked at Aston Martin, yeah, seventh. So if before the season we saw Alonso finishing 7th and Stroll 11th for Aston Martin, we'd say, you know what, that's all right. That's about where we expect them to be. But from the beginning of the season, when they were getting podiums, it's just, what's happened?
Yeah, I mean, I think they've been outdeveloped by other teams. Unfortunately, they're not used to fighting so far up the front of the grid. It's a good learning curve for them, at least this season. Hopefully, they'll be able to compete again next season. I mean, it's showing them where they need to develop, what certain tracks they need to develop their car for, because we are seeing that it is always in Formula One as we go throughout the season. It's a developmental game. Whoever makes the biggest upgrades throughout the season is able to take that championship. Granted, of course, Red Bull are strong from the beginning of the season, but they are still bringing upgrades. They bring a major upgrade to Hungary this weekend, I say now. They bring a new floor to this weekend. I mean, gosh, their floor has been so dominant and so far ahead of everyone else on the grid, but they're still upgrading it and developing it. It shows that you cannot sleep in Formula One, otherwise you are just going to get left in the dust.
Yeah, indeed. And I did have a poll running throughout the stream, which I've just ended now, and it was very simply, can Ferrari turn things around? And I had four options, and it was actually apparently a good set of options. And the first one was, of course, which did get the most of the votes, but only 32%. So only 30% of people reckon that Ferrari can genuinely turn this around. 25% of people think don't know this team anymore. They just don't know who Ferrari are. Then 28% of you said, maybe, maybe they can turn around.
The maybes.
And then, of course, right at the bottom, nope, they're down and out, which got 14% of the votes. So, yeah, I think that's pretty much sums up Ferrari right now. It's just, it's 30%, 28%, 25% mixed votes across where we think they could finish. And I think that's pretty much Ferrari right now. It's just we don't know, but not looking particularly good.
Yeah, I mean, we can never rule them out. It's still a very long season. We've got a lot of races still ahead of us. We've only done 11 races so far. And yeah, it's still all to play for. I mean, it's not, but it is. Max can genuinely finish second at every race from now on and still take the championship.
Yeah, so
there's been a lot of talk on social media and from other Formula One channels and stuff like that, talking about what we should do about a runaway season like we have this year from Max Verstappen and Red Bull. Should we just gift them the championship halfway through the season and say, okay, cool, go home, go play with your cats, Max, go play on your simulator. Everyone else will play for the best of the rest trophy, and we'll put Yuki Tsunoda in your seat.
I mean, you know the hilarious thing is I mean, yes, I like the fun things that people have thrown out there, and I mean, it's a good chuckle. The problem is that most Formula One fans become so obsessed with who wins, and they decide that a Grand Prix is either exciting or boring based on who wins. They don't care about the rest of the grid, and that's the problem. Is that the moment you start thinking like that, don't bother watching, because I mean, it's not even like it was all that different in the past. Yes,
you would have been so disappointed through Hamilton's 7 years of dominance. I mean, you can't just focus on the top. Of course, you're going to focus on the top. It's who's winning the race. But you can also still enjoy the midfield battles, which, I mean, we've had this weekend.
Yeah.
Phenomenal midfield battles.
And not just that, it's the fact that, take away the Drivers' Championship. Red Bull are out of here. We know this. But we still see surprising things that seem to get all of us out of our chairs, like Perez not finishing, not getting into Q2, let alone Q3. And those sort of things still happen. And also, our midfield battle / even the best of the rest battle is seriously competitive this year. Take Red Bull out of the equation. We've got Mercedes, now McLaren, probably asking the question. Ferrari and Aston Martin are all there trying to vie for that second position.
You've left out a team.
Who have I left out?
Williams.
Yes, and Williams is right. They're not quite fighting for the best of the rest, but they're certainly, again, that's
nasty to my Williams.
It's a very, very exciting team to watch.
I mean,
yeah,
it's going to be interesting to see what happens. I'm happy to see that we do have quite a tight midfield, but I still do want, of course, that Red Bull to kind of fall back a little bit. As much as I am a Red Bull supporter, I do support obviously quite a few teams down the grid. But yeah, I want to see just closer racing like we had this weekend. Max only finished 3 seconds ahead of Lando Norris, but that was, of course, due to the safety car. It will be nice to see more drivers fighting it out for that top spot.
Barrett also there agreeing with us pretty much on all those points. So thank you to you in the comments. Thank you to everybody who's been watching the Forever F1 podcast, or the F1 podcast here on Forever Motorsports. We do it every Monday, so be sure to subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications so that you guys know about when we go live for Formula One content and otherwise. And thanks again to Bitdefender for sponsoring the channel. Bitdefender, you can see them all around us here. Great package from them. Go check them out in the descriptions of all of our videos as well. And Reese, any final comments before we wrap up today's show?
Yes, well, we haven't spoken about him. You touched on him very, very quickly. Sergio Perez. What do you think is going to happen with him? I mean, Gosh, he has been so far off of the form recently in the most competitive car, possibly of all time.
Well, I'm not sure it's necessarily of all time. Those Mercs were
Yes, it
also.
is. No, I mean, the Mercedes weren't ever able to take. If Max gets one more consecutive win, it is the most consecutive wins in history.
Yeah, it is true. It is true. It is true. So, look, it's going to be very interesting because, we talked about earlier in the show Nick de Vries and the fact that Daniel Ricciardo is likely going to go and take that seat in silly season here. So that means that if you wanted to replace Sergio Perez with Daniel Ricciardo, which would have been a very good replacement, can't happen anymore, which means they now go to a rookie potentially taking Sergio Perez's place, which is why I don't think it's going to happen.
Well, they've said that they're happy with Sergio Perez and they're going to stick with him, even though he is going through a bit of a tough spot at the moment. They said the same thing, though, about Alex Albon and Pierre Gasly. And look what happened to them.
Yeah, I mean, it's we're approaching silly season, and silly season is definitely, I think, this year going to be quite silly, and we're going to see quite a few changes. Who knows? Maybe we do get a rookie taking up that Red Bull seat, or maybe we see a different changes. Maybe we see somebody just comes back out of nowhere. Maybe one last hurrah from Sebastian Vettel for half a season or something. Who knows what could happen with that Red Bull team? I doubt very much that sort of thing could
My
happen.
fanboy heart could not, everyone. But back into a Red Bull, I would just
exactly
be in heaven.
Yeah, so it's certainly going to be something interesting to watch. But that brings us to the end of our Monday F1 podcast, and thank you guys so much for watching and joining me and Reese, myself, Mark, of course, and yeah. Be sure to hit that subscribe button, like the video, turn on notifications. Thanks again to Bitdefender for sponsoring the channel. And we'll check you again next week. Of course, there's no Formula 1 this weekend. But we will have it again next week. And it is going to be a good Grand Prix. Thank you so much for joining us, Reese. And everybody else at home. We're going to head on out. Goodbye.
Hello everybody and welcome to Forever Motorsports on Forever Sport. Today's guide on how to watch the 2023 Formula 1 season, which kicks off this weekend. The Bahrain Grand Prix will officially get the season underway, and there is just so much action between now and about November when the season will come to an end. Just races all around the world, more sprints, more races, a busier season than ever, and yeah, I think it's going to be a very interesting season to see exactly if Red Bull can continue to sort of assert their dominance, if we're going to see Mercedes coming back, what are we going to see? And the question is, how can you watch all the action throughout the season? Now, the first things first is that we will do videos for every single Grand Prix. We will do videos on how to watch that particular Grand Prix on a free-to-air broadcaster. Which means that as long as you subscribe to the channel and you monitor us, you'll be able to sort of find out how to watch every single race on a free-to-air broadcaster. And so make sure you subscribe to the channel for that. Now, to be able to do that, though, however, there are very different broadcasters from around the world. So what you're going to do is you're going to get yourself a VPN. I recommend using ExpressVPN because we've tried and tested it and it just works. So what you're going to do, link in the description, get ExpressVPN, get yourself that year subscription as well. If you sign up for a year subscription, you'll actually get an extra 3 months for free, which means you'll be able to start watching from this weekend and it'll cover you up to about June next year. You're going to install ExpressVPN and it's going to come up something looking like that. And you think if you click on the right hand side there, you're then going to get these this pop up, and those are all the locations of all the various places where you can connect to sort of servers. And what it does, it kind of geolocates your device. So for example, for Bahrain, there are free-to-air broadcasts in Belgium as well as in Austria. So you connect to those locations and you go to those sites. But if you totally wanted to watch the entire season, my recommendation would be to get F1 TV Pro. Now, it is only available in certain locations, that being the US, the Netherlands, Sweden, I think Spain, Germany. Then you'll need to use ExpressVPN if it's not covered in that region. And again, so what you do is you go on ExpressVPN, you go and select the United States, and then all you do is you turn it on. As soon as this goes green, it means that you are currently connected to a server in the United States. You're then going to go and sign up for F1 TV Pro, which is $45 for the entire year. Alternatively, it is $5 a month, which is really not a lot of money. And you can get so many more things. You can watch onboard footage with individual drivers. You get behind-the-scenes content. It really is the best way to watch Formula One. However, you can only watch it in those regions, and that is where a VPN like ExpressVPN will come in clutch and enable you to really sort of get the most out of F1 TV. Check out the description for a sort of step-by-step guide on exactly how you can do it. Apart from that, we'll see you guys throughout the season.
Good evening, everybody, and welcome to Forever Motorsports on Forever Sports. I'm joined by Reese, and this is, of course, our weekly F1 podcast, proudly brought to you by Bitdefender as well. And big news, of course, this weekend. Ricciardo, first Grand Prix back in Formula One for AlphaTauri after replacing Nick de Vries. We did a video on that last week, and he will be coming in this weekend in Hungary for all of us. And we are so excited, aren't we, Reese?
Yes, it's looking like it's going to be quite an exciting race weekend. I mean, though, even off the bat, we're just going to be upfront about it. Red Bull have major upgrades being planned for this race weekend, which could give them another couple tenths, Mark.
Yeah, I mean, it's quite scary, you know, the strongest team in the whole field basically saying, oh, by the way, we've made our car better. And quite significantly better as well. So it's going to scare, I think, a lot of people into it. So, I mean, I don't know if the other upgrades and other teams might be able to compete with that. I think, actually, to be fair, it's probably about time Red Bull needed to get that time going, because teams were starting to get a little bit closer to their times. I mean, the likes of, even surprisingly, obviously, not last weekend, but the weekend before that, McLaren getting very close with their times and qualifying and actually sticking with Red Bull relatively well throughout the race. Obviously, Red Bull's still stronger, but it wasn't as clear-cut, and now Red Bull basically saying, all right, well, in that case, we were going to go ahead and just really rapidly go to the top.
I think the circuit may play into McLaren's hands yet again, because, I mean, we saw how they were quite competitive in Silverstone. Of course, that's a mixture of high speed and low speed corners, but Hungary is quite a high downforce circuit, which played into their hands certainly in Austria, which is also a high downforce circuit. So we could see them being once again quite competitive here this weekend.
Yeah, I mean, I've got a little article here saying Max Verstappen's warning to the F1 grid as he confirms Red Bull's Hungary car upgrades. And he holds a comfortable 99-point lead currently in the title race. I mean, that's just in itself just ridiculous. And Verstappen was just speaking to the media and saying that, of course, Red Bull has announced the upgrade package being brought to this weekend. He says, Hungary presents a completely different track. We will implement some upgrades on the car there, and hopefully they will perform well. And regarding the focus of the upgrades, Verstappen ominously remarked, drag, low speed, medium speed, high speed, DRS effect, tyre wear, all of these areas. That's what we're working on. I'm not joking. So it's basically the whole shebang. So, I mean, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it just shows the fact that Max Verstappen and Red Bull are still perfectionists. I mean, they've got Adrian Newey, one of the most talented car designers out there. I mean, he is certainly chasing perfection with his car, and we can see it out on track how it certainly is perfection on wheels. It's completely dominating the rest of the grid, and quite easily, if I might add.
Yeah, so I mean, it's upsetting for some F1 fans. Of course, we've got Red Bull coming up with these extra upgrades for the weekend. Which is certainly going to scare the rest of the pack, certainly the likes of McLaren, Mercedes. I would say Aston Martin and Ferrari, but they've dropped off. So we'll see what happens with them.
We'll see them possibly coming back in the next few races. I certainly hope that they get to grips with their new upgrades. I think Ferrari bought new upgrades to Austria, was it not?
I think so, yeah.
Well. Yeah, and I mean, we haven't seen them necessarily showing that hand just yet, possibly just taking a little bit longer to get to grips with those upgrades. Hopefully, we should see them finding some pace soon.
Yeah, so of course, the bigger news and the title of the show, of course, that of Daniel Ricciardo coming in this week for his first Grand Prix for the season, replacing Nick de Vries. So I've got an article here from the F1 site, and it says, Daniel Ricciardo says he is raring to go and is ready to have fun after securing a stunning F1 comeback with AlphaTauri as part of the upcoming Hungarian Grand Prix, a move that will break his half-year absence from the sport. And he said this, it's good, it's really good, Ricciardo beamed as the conversation kicked off. I enjoyed this, call it 6 months off. I think it was really good for me, but the more races I started to attend, the more sim I started to do. I was certainly getting the bug back, so to speak. Then jumping into the car a few days ago, I was like, oh yeah, it all felt very normal. It was one of those. It was one of those ones. The very first lap, oh, this is fast. Then within a few, it's okay. I want this to go faster now, so it was really good. Ricardo also added that he stayed ready at all times to ensure that he could fully embrace any opportunity to return to the grid, which he admitted was in the back of my mind given the unpredictable future of F1. And indeed, we are in silly season, and how silly it was indeed that AlphaTauri decided to stick with Nick de Vries for so long, I suppose, but now replacing him with Daniel Ricciardo. So how's he going to fare this weekend, Reese?
I mean, I think Daniel Ricciardo, of course, still has that passion and that fire burning deep with him, that he is still a very competitive racing driver, one of the last of the late breakers. So hopefully we'll get him doing quite well this race weekend. I mean, certainly it's going to be interesting for the Red Bull management to see how he fares against Yuki Tsunoda. Yuki not necessarily having many teammates to set a necessary benchmark for him. So I think the Red Bull management will certainly be looking to see if he is actually competitive against Daniel Ricciardo, or if he has just been taking place and space in that team, and whether he should also possibly be axed, really, because I mean, the sister team is supposed to be bringing drivers up from the junior formulas to get them ready for the main team in Formula One. So yeah, there's a lot of people riding on the shoulders of Danny Rick. I mean, there's also a lot of rumors, of course, about him uh, possibly going to be replacing Sergio Perez if he is able to outperform him at all.
Yeah, I mean, that's what I was just reading here as well. It says Ricardo also knows that should he deliver with AlphaTauri, or at least perform relatively well with the sister team, as you say, there might be a route back to Red Bull in the future, though he is currently focused on the AlphaTauri job, of course. And he says that's why it feels a bit like back when I was working my way up through it in the Red Bull family, he added. That was it. If you get results, we'll keep pushing you. We'll keep pushing you. That's really the mindset. I know the team. It's been tough to get points to get a points finish this year, a top 10. This is AlphaTauri, of course. So to push this car and to try and get it inside the top 10, I think that would get everyone pretty fulfilled and excited. So, I mean, if Daniel Ricciardo manages in this first Grand Prix to come back and finish in the top 10, would you say immediately that that's an outstanding performance?
Well, I mean, if he's able to get into the top 10, certainly that would be an outstanding performance for that AlphaTauri, which has been far off the pace this season. I mean, it's certainly not a copy and paste of the Red Bull car. It's completely different, I think, way underdeveloped as well, for that matter. And we've seen how Yuki Tsunoda and Nick de Vries have been struggling. So I think it may take a few races for Daniel Rick to have an effect on that team, and hopefully steer them into the correct direction in terms of development of that car as well.
Yeah. So if AlphaTauri can do something with Daniel Ricciardo, Sergio Perez is certainly going to come under pressure with regards to the media, the fans, and everybody else is going to go and say, well, if Danny Rick is performing for them, he's right there. You know, Sergio Perez is not performing for Red Bull. So how crucial is it that Sergio Perez finally does decently in qualifying this weekend and then also finishes the race well?
I think it's a bit of a chess move from the Red Bull management there to kind of go to Sergio. Well, look, we've put Daniel Rick into the AlphaTauri. If you're not able to outperform him at least, then you're in big trouble here. I mean, we don't necessarily know what Daniel Rick's going to be able to do. We'll see what happens here in Hungary, of course. But it's been, as we said earlier, 6 months of him out of an actual race car. He's, of course, done that Pirelli test now this last week, but still, we don't know what he's going to be able to do in that car. We've seen how Nick de Vries really struggled there, and he's a race winner in Formula E and Formula 2. But we'll just really have to wait and see what happens with Danny this race weekend.
Yeah, and Martin Brundle is actually surprised that Daniel was going to be back, because, I mean, he literally said, I mean, he's really pleased to see him back, but his honest reaction was just, wow, Daniel's going to go and do that, is he? So some people are surprised at his return. A lot of people not really surprised. I think we're of those two that aren't too surprised with his return.
I was slightly surprised because he said he didn't want to come back onto the grid in an uncompetitive car. But I think being out of the car for 6 months, being on the grid for a lot of the races, you really do miss that feeling of being in a car, as well as I think he does sense the opportunity that he could get a drive in the main team if he is able to outperform Sergio.
Yeah, And of course, that's all in the Hungarian Grand Prix, which we will, of course, be streaming here on Forever Motorsports. And speaking of the Hungarian Grand Prix, we've got a little bit of a weather forecast. And again, it's weather right at the beginning of the week. The weather will change most likely. But right now, the weather could be quite interesting for Hungary. So Friday, it's predicted to be the worst day of the weekend, at least if you love the sun. Temperatures are going to be clipping 30 degrees Celsius and will feature throughout the week. And practice one will drops at 1:30 p.m. local time, so it'll start at lunchtime. So it'll be right in the hottest part of the day. And apparently it is going to be a scorcher. Saturday is going to say that we're going to have a bit of a green track because they actually reckon there'll be rain in the evening. So thundery showers could be predicted on Friday evening. That's what it's saying. The second practice session could see some showers and rain. And so they're likely to have a green track for Saturday's qualifying, or at least practice 3. So lots of hot weather mixed with rain is pretty much what's predicted for the weekend. So, I mean, that could definitely throw a bit of a spanner in the works. So also, if it rains each night, which is what's predicted to do, that's going to make sure the track is green every single time they get into a session on each day. So the race would be green. The qualifying would only have practice 3, getting it a bit rubbered up. So,
I mean, it could make the race quite interesting because I think then degradation is going to be huge around here. Because, I mean, when your track is a little bit rubbered up, you pick up a bit of rubber each lap. So you're not necessarily destroying those tires too quickly. But I think with a completely green track, you do just degrade your tires a lot faster. I mean, with the being as well a high downforce track, you are going to eat away at those tires a little bit quicker than a normal higher speed track. But I mean, it's going to hopefully make it quite interesting for us. Speaking of though, interesting for this race weekend, Mark, we have a new qualifying format that is going to be taking place at this Hungarian Grand Prix.
And I was going to go to that next, of course, but it is a very interesting thing. And for those who don't know, they're going to be doing a different set of tires each session. So we're going to start the first qualifying session on hard tires. You can only use the hard compound. Then in the second session, only the medium, and the third session, only the soft tire. Now, the interesting thing here is because it's going to be very, very hot weather, they reckon, and then as well, like slight rain and otherwise influencing this. I mean, some teams are going to really benefit from this, some teams not, because certain tires don't work for all of the cars. I mean, we know Red Bull are going to be chuffed as anything because they are by far and away much faster on the hard tire than the rest of the grid are on their hard tires, whereas only on the soft tire do other teams start to compete a little bit more with those times. So, I mean, surely that benefits Red Bull massively in qualifying 1 and even 2.
Well, yes, I mean, it does look like it's going to be a big advantage for Red Bull in qualifying 1 and 2, as they are, as you said, very strong in the hards as well as strong in the mediums. We don't know, though. It could benefit some other teams further down the grid. We haven't necessarily seen that true pace from them on a set of hards. I mean, I don't think we've seen any qualifying laps put on a set of tires other than a set of softs this season. I mean, this qualifying format was set to take place in Imola earlier on this year. We, of course, saw what happened to Imola, some better than others. But yeah, it's going to be interesting. I understand why they have brought this format into play here. It's because, I mean, they bring so many sets of tires to a race weekend, and then half of them don't end up being used, which is why they have brought in this rule now that you have to use a set of hards during Q1, mediums in Q2, and then in Q3 are you allowed a set of softs. Yeah.
So no, and I was just going to go and say, because you're going and saying earlier, they've got to use these tires and things like that, and they've never really done, as you said, and I was going to jump in, they've never really done qualifying attempts on a hard tire. So now that in itself, is that going to just like really cause drivers to be a little bit of concern, of course, because the soft tire's got the most grip, medium tire a little bit less, and the hard tire less than that. But of course, the hard tire's made to last a lot longer. Medium tire's set to be, of course, in between the two of them. The soft tire has the most grip around the track usually. So with the hard tire now, I mean, do you think drivers could actually end up like spinning and otherwise coming off the track a little bit, pushing those tires a little bit too much for what they're made for, or do you think that it's actually just going to be just slow laps?
I mean, I think it's going to be a bit slow. These drivers, of course, run so close to the limit every day. and they're able to keep the cars on track. At least the majority of them are. But I don't think it's necessarily going to affect them in terms of that. But of course, the lap times will be a lot slower than your sets of mediums and your softs. Yeah, it's not really going to affect it all that much. Your top teams are still going to be just as fast on the set of hards. It could just create a little bit of a mix up down the midfield, as you could get teams that are a bit stronger on the hards than were expected. But I do think that if your team is fundamentally fast, they're going to be fast on any tire out there.
But the interesting thing now, of course, comes to players' park firm, because now these hard tires are going to be used, these medium tires are going to be used, and these soft tires are all going to be used in the qualifying session. So you're going to use at minimum 3 sets of tires, and more likely 6 sets, because in each qualifying session you're going to go out in hards, and you might well go out in a new set of hards again towards the end of it, to try and get a little bit quicker at the end once it's rubbered up a bit more, and then similarly in Q2 and similarly in Q3. So now you're going to go into the actual Grand Prix with almost all of your tires for the allocation of the weekend being used. So no real new tires to speak of coming onto into the race weekend and even in qualifying. So that's going to also affect strategies, surely.
I mean, I think we'll get people saving up tires throughout the weekend. They won't go on as many runs as they necessarily need to throughout practice 1, 2, and 3. I think we could get people maybe running on a set of tires for the majority of the session instead of going on multiple new sets in order to save tires. Of course, they do have less tire sets than in the past in order to save on those costs of transporting them all around the world, of course. But I mean, I think it's a good move for Formula One. It pushes them in a certain direction as to use all of those tires. And as you said, it could make it quite interesting in terms of strategy on the Sunday.
Yeah, I mean, if the tires have been used and you're going on to used hard tires, they're not going to last as long. You maybe those pit stop strategies for a 1 stop they change to a 2 stop. Those 2 stops change to 3 stops and things like that, because the tires don't last as long, and that could really, really affect the race. And I'm all for changes that could potentially make the racing more interesting, and that causes a bit more thinking in all of the teams, and strategies to change, and different variables. The more variables, the better for me, because of course then you've got more likelihood of things changing. So yeah, that's certainly going to suit some teams more than others. We know Red Bull probably smiling with new upgrades, and they know they're much better on hard tires and medium tires than the rest of the good. Not to say that they're not better than the rest of the good on soft tires as well, but they're at least a little bit closer, most of the good, though Red Bull and those hards especially, I think, are going to be very beneficial in a Q1. Now, a team that could be very much a disappointment yet again, and that is Ferrari. We always talk about Ferrari in terms of being the big disappointment, but Charles Leclerc has come out honestly and has said that he trusts the Ferrari team, and that yes, they do disagree sometimes, but he still trusts the team. And he says, I say to the team what I think, and the team say what they think. This is the way to move forward. I don't think the trust has ever been an issue. We have a very different vision inside the car than what the team has on the pit wall, so these things can happen. So, I mean, yes, I understand that the pit wall has a different idea as to what's happening in the car, but we don't really see such a massive difference in most of the team setups, do we? Red Bull seem to be very much all together with what's happening out on track. Even McLaren seem to be quite happy with what's happening. Aston Martin as well. All of them very happy with decisions on the wall and in the driver's seat. You know, very much always aligned. Ferrari is the only team that always seems to have this struggle.
Yes, I mean, we often hear on the team radios how the drivers are not happy with the calls being made by the team in terms of strategy, in terms of calling them into pit or not to pit. I mean, we've heard in the past Carlos Sainz saying stop inventing to the team more, because they do at times, they just create absolutely stupid strategic calls that should never be made, that could cost them a race win or cost them a podium. We need to see more consistency from them, more better strategic calls. I mean, they've got a Le Mans 24-hour win. That is so difficult to do and requires so much strategy. Surely you take what you've learned there and implement that into your Formula One team. I mean, yeah, I think we've given them excuses for way too long. It's time for them to really pick up their pieces and just get it right for once.
So that's Ferrari, of course. They just, as you said, they just need to get it right. They need to fix it up, and just be better, essentially. Mercedes, now, they managed to get a podium in the last Grand Prix. Lewis Hamilton getting ahead of Oscar Piastri there, who finished in fourth, unfortunately. Lewis Hamilton finished in third. George Russell, not particularly good, and he hasn't been particularly great for a couple of races now. So can Merck try and eye some podiums this weekend, or are they looking good for that, or could they just sort of simmer where they've been?
I mean, the interesting thing is that the A-spec car, George Russell, seemed to outperform Lewis. Now with this new B-spec, it's swapped. Lewis seems to be finding some good pace out there while George is really struggling. I mean, George, I think, is maybe hoping they stayed with their A-spec car because he felt a lot more competitive. But yeah, I don't know what's really gone on with him because he has shown that he is quite a competitive driver.
Yeah, and Aston Martin have fallen off. It's quite upsetting, and unfortunately, I just don't see them coming back into the fray. But a team that is pretty much taking their spot, though, McLaren. Now, they were fantastic in the last Grand Prix in Silverstone. Do we think that they'll do a similar thing now coming in Hungary? Because you said earlier, and you said, I think this track favors them. Now, do you think they can compete again? Does Lando Norris look at this and say, hey, you know who I'm competing with? It's not Charles Leclerc, it's not Carlos Sainz, it's Max Verstappen. And is that what Lando Norris is thinking in his head now?
Well, I think they'll have a bit of a fight on their hands. I don't necessarily know if they will be able to compete with the Red Bulls with their new upgrades this weekend. Of course, Red Bull haven't brought an upgrade for quite some time, and they are expected to bring some really big upgrades this weekend. We will, of course, let you know as soon as we do know what those upgrades are. But I mean, it's certainly hopeful for us Formula One fans that we have McLaren back in the fight at the front. I mean, we want to see them fighting for race wins. Hopefully, it is going to be the story for this race weekend. It would be very exciting if we do have them in contention for that race win.
Yeah. And do you have any other news for us for this podcast this week? Is there anything else you'd like to chat about as we start to wrap things up?
Well, we had Goodwood over the race weekend. Well, not race weekend, but this past weekend we had Goodwood Festival of Speed, which is a very prestigious event where a lot of auto manufacturers take their newest models of cars. I mean, we had Sebastian Vettel doing a show run in two of his old Formula One cars. He has one of Ayrton Senna's old cars, and he has also an old Williams car that he was running through that race weekend, running on sustainable fuels, which is great to see Sebastian Vettel back out on track in a car yet again. Certainly hope to see him on the Formula One grid very soon. We did see him last week, though, as well, at that Red Bull Pirelli test with Daniel Ricciardo. He was there doing some test laps as well with his cars.
Yeah, I mean, Vettel was seen racing around again over the weekend, as you said, and that was very, very fun to see. Do you think that he will ever come back to Formula One, or do you think he's permanently out?
He has apparently teased that he will be back on the grid very soon, whether that's in the
I'm sure that's
managerial position. I mean, I think he could certainly be brought into the sport as some sort of sustainability position. I don't know whether that would be to make sure that the sport is going in the right direction, or I don't know. It would be very interesting to see him back in the sport. I certainly hope that he finds his way back into the sport very soon.
Yeah. Now we've got 2 weekends until we've got that long break. So we've got 2 weekends for teams to sort things out before they've got a bit of time off before the latter half of the season. And going into these last 2 Grand Prix, I mean, who do you think is going to be our team to watch?
Well, certainly off the back of Silverstone, McLaren are really going to be the ones to watch, whether they can keep that upward growth going from Austria to Silverstone. Hopefully Hungary, they're going to be competitive yet again, and then onto that last race before the summer break, hopefully they will still be quite competitive. Maybe some of the other teams will also be wanting to make some developmental gains. We'll have to wait and see whether they'll be able to fast track some of those upgrades.
Indeed. And yeah, we're going to start wrapping things up here in the F1 podcast. Of course, we do this every Monday, so be sure to come and join us with it and come and have a conversation with us and ask us some questions. We do it live, of course, with me and Reese. And the show is partly brought to you by Bitdefender currently. And you find it on the channel Forever Sports. So be sure to like the video, subscribe to the channel, and comment after the video, of course, if you watch it in replay, as to your thoughts, ask us some questions, and yeah, go and tell your friends about us as well. Maybe we can get a good chat going coming into the future. Of course, we've got Hungary coming this weekend. We will be streaming all of it and coming with a preview on Thursday as well. So be sure to subscribe to the channel and check that out as well. Reese, thank you so much for joining us. From me and Reese, you have been watching Forever Motorsports, brought to you by Bitdefender. And we will see you again very soon for the Hungarian Grand Prix. Thank you so much, guys. Cheerio. Hello everybody and welcome to Forever Motorsports on Forever Sports. You're joined by Reese and myself, Mark, here for the Hungary Grand Prix preview, the Hungaroring, as Reese just tells me now. That's how you actually say it. I always keep saying the Hungaroring, but whatever. We are, of course, in Hungary this weekend, and Red Bull are bringing upgrades this weekend, big upgrades. We've already seen them, and it's mainly to do with the air intake, which has dramatically reduced in size. And for a car that's already so quick, getting more upgrades is just going to really upset the rest of the field. But we're going to go through what we can expect from all the various teams this weekend and our predictions. And otherwise, of course, Daniel Ricciardo is back in an F1 seat this weekend, and he's got a very cool helmet coming into the weekend with some flames all over. And yeah, looking very cool there. Reese, are we looking forward to the Hungary Grand Prix?
Yes, I'm certainly looking forward to it. It's ramping up to be a very exciting race weekend yet again. I mean, if last weekend was a taster, this weekend should certainly be very, very exciting with those McLarens hopefully being in the mix. Red Bull, as you said, have brought some major upgrades this weekend. They are supposedly bringing new side pods. We've already seen some leaked images on Twitter of their new side pod inlets, which seem to be quite a lot smaller than their previous side pod inlets. Quite similar in terms of look to the Mercedes Zero side pod concept, except not on its side. It's like a normal side pod, but it's very similar in terms of depth to that Mercedes side pod. So it's going to be interesting whether they can make that work this weekend. It is going to possibly be the hottest Grand Prix of the season, with Europe having a major heat wave at the moment. And it is just scorching in Hungary at the moment as well. So we'll have to wait and see if that Red Bull engine is going to be able to handle the heat with those slim side pod inlets.
It's an interesting one because, of course, they're bringing upgrades. And they haven't brought upgrades much throughout the season because they're not needed to at all. The car's been fantastic. It's been an excellent car. Now, they're bringing a massive change to the car. It is a huge change to do that. Of course, it affects the cooling. It affects all of that sort of stuff. So, you know, going into a very hot Grand Prix, could this be a risk for Red Bull now? Almost like throwing away a little bit of their season?
Well, I don't think you can say throwing away and season in the same word with Red Bull, because they are just eons ahead of everyone else at this point. I mean, it doesn't really matter all that much to take a big risk, as much as Max Verstappen will, of course, be wanting to win every single Grand Prix this weekend and lead every single lap this season. Yeah, it's not going to happen all the time. Maybe they might take a risk and it might not play out for them, but that could make it that much more exciting for us at home.
Exactly. So the Hungarian Grand Prix, it's been held 38 times in total. This first held way back in 1936. The most wins for all of the drivers in history is Lewis Hamilton with 8 wins here. And the most wins for constructor is not for once Ferrari. It is in fact McLaren with 11 wins at the circuit. And I think that's quite appropriate and apt because McLaren seem to have found their feet a bit. So maybe McLaren can do something this weekend. Indeed.
I certainly hope so.
Yeah, foretelling indeed. Circuit length is 4.381 kilometers. The race length is 306 kilometers. And there are 70 laps in total. In the last race, George Russell finished on pole for Mercedes, getting the quickest lap around here last year, and Max Verstappen won the race. Lewis Hamilton came second, and George Russell came third. So it was a great Grand Prix for Mercedes last year, of course, for them who didn't have the best car during their season. So they started to ramp up this season again towards the end. If you remember, Mercedes started to get a lot better towards the latter half of the season last year, and maybe we'll see a similar sort of thing happen again. And last year they did very well. Maybe this year they do just as well again.
Well, I mean, they'll have some good information, at least from last year when they were here, to correlate with their new setups and their new upgrades. So hopefully they will be able to find some time, because they have been not lost in the past few races, but I mean, certainly not contending for the race win, which at least McLaren were able to do last weekend. So possibly we'll be seeing a bit of a three-way fight this race weekend if Mercedes are able to pick up the pieces.
Just very, very important for both Mercedes drivers to not have issues with each other or decide to go into each other, as we have seen from the Mercedes team in the Hungarian Grand Prix previously, of course. Very, very famously, Lewis Hamilton and I think it was Rosberg, did have a big incident here in Hungary between 2014 and 2016. I can't quite remember which
That
one
was
it
in
was.
Spain. It
Oh,
was in Spain.
wasn't Spain, but I'm
In
reading here.
2016.
I'm reading here.
Maybe they did have a tussle here as well.
I think
Remember
they've had
Max and-
tussles here in the meanwhile,
I
but yes, no,
remember
it was.
Max and Daniel Ricciardo tussling into turn 3 a couple years ago, where Max took off Daniel's wing when those two were fighting it out for P1 on the first lap. But I certainly don't remember
Yeah,
the Nico Rosberg
just
one.
sorry,
It
yeah,
definitely did
sorry.
happen if you're saying it does.
Yeah, well, I'm just reading here, and it's just saying in this article as well. I was just going to try and sorry, I was just cutting across there, but just simply because, yeah, we do see this article here in Sky Sports does bring up the fact that lots of incidents seem to have been brought up between not just Lewis Hamilton and Rosberg, but teammates generally in Hungary tend to get a bit feisty and otherwise getting in their way. And a couple of small incidents have happened over the years for multiple teams, including Red Bull, Mercedes, McLaren, and Ferrari, of course, as well. So,
I mean,
Mercedes.
there was a big crash a few years ago into turn 1. Turn 1 certainly going to be a big watching point for the Grand Prix, because we often have so many big accidents here with that 90-degree corner. It's similar to Spa, which we have coming up soon as well, with that first corner, where we just see a lot of accidents taking place there.
Yeah, and Mercedes, of course, Toto Wolff is now playing down the expectations for this weekend, even though they did very well last year. And he's saying the order is fluctuating almost every weekend. We need to keep adding performance if we are to close the gap to the front and fight for victories. Several teams have made big gains recently, of course, those being McLaren and Mercedes as well. This has brought some into the fight with us, especially McLaren. It has been impressive and gives us encouragement that we can also continue to find gains. Of course, both of them using the same engines. That's why he's saying that's encouraging. And it says, we relish the challenge and will bring our own steps in due course. The Hungaroring is a circuit that is quite different in nature to Silverstone. It will be interesting to explore how our latest upgrades perform in the long radius, slow speed corners. So, yeah, Mercedes are diving down expectations a little bit, but I think they're quietly hoping they're going to have a good Grand Prix.
I mean, they've been so hit or miss at the last few Grand Prix. They were quite good, at least out in Silverstone last weekend, but or the weekend before, sorry. But I mean, yeah, we'll have to wait and see what happens, because I don't think we've really gotten a true reflection of the Mercedes pace. Yes, we did see them in Austria, but I don't think we've seen the true pace of a Mercedes at a high downforce circuit. This is the first true, like, really high downforce circuit. So hopefully the Mercedes will be able to find a lot more pace here with their new side pods.
And another team looking to find a lot more pace that we've not seen for the last two Grand Prix, that being Aston Martin. Of course, Aston Martin's dropped off a little bit from where they started at the beginning of the season. Fernando Alonso's now got two Grand Prix without a podium. So he's going to be quite upset, not since Canada, of course, where he managed to come in second place. I think it was Canada, yeah. So, yeah. But they do reckon that Aston Martin should be very much well suited to this track, because they've seen that out of all the cars, the car that seems to handle hitting curbs and tight corners such as that, and riding the curbs and otherwise, is Aston Martin's actually the best team out of the lot, and that includes Red Bull. Their car manages hitting these curbs and otherwise these quite bumpy parts of the track a lot better than almost everybody. So, whilst they were quiet at Silverstone and Spielberg, this is on the Sky Sports now, they do reckon that the AMR 23 strengths and change of direction and its ability to ride the curbs should fare a lot better in Budapest. The track temperature is also set above 40 degrees Celsius this weekend, which will also help Aston Martin, since they seem to do very well in hot conditions. So, yeah, I think Aston Martin are also quietly maybe going to make a little bit of a comeback here. But we're just seeing here an interview here where Alonso was asked by Sky Sports. He says, we are realistic. We have always been. We have never been dreamers. Sorry, this is Mike Crack. So it says, so we will look at the track and we will look at our car and how to set it up for that. If you're looking for the characteristic, it should play better into our car than other circuits that we have been to. Qualifying is key, though, especially in circuits where you struggle more to pass, like the one that will come. Although it was now a bit easier than it used to be. So I think he's also saying that we're not gonna say anything too much yet, but this track should suit us better. And if it does suit them better, we've seen what Aston Martin can do on tracks that suit them. So hopefully we'll see something similar.
Well, I mean, I think it's a little bit optimistic at the moment. Those Astons have been, as you say, just off the pace for the last few weekends. yeah, it's very optimistic to think that they're going to be able to fight this weekend. Maybe they might surprise us. I'll be quite happily surprised because I am silently rooting for the Aston Martins to do quite well. It's been disappointing to not have Fernando up there because, I mean, we've had not George Russell, sorry, Lando Norris and Lewis Hamilton fighting up at the front. Imagine a three-way fight between those three, including Alonso. That would be incredible.
Indeed. And, to be fair, it's only 2 weekends they've not done particularly well. Prior to that, of course, in Canada, they did very well. Fernando Alonso finishing right up in second place. So Aston Martin could hopefully make a comeback here. It's a track that suits them a lot more. And they, of course, brought big upgrades to Montreal, and it worked quite well for that track, not for the subsequent two, but it should be better suited to this track as well. So Mercedes hopefully going to do well. McLaren hopefully going to continue their great form from Silverstone, and Aston Martin hopefully in the fold. But a team that's just fallen off and that we never get to talk about as improving and showing us all wrong is the famed Ferrari. And their form is once again up in the air. Who knows? What do we expect from Ferrari this weekend?
Oh, I mean, Ferrari, gosh, if you have to describe their season as one word, it's certainly disappointing. Off the back of last season, uh, they were so close in terms of the championship points until around now in the season, which is where they started to really fall off. But this season, I mean, the wheels weren't even on the car to start with. It's just been bad all around. Coming into this Grand Prix weekend, I'm certainly hoping they can pick up the pieces a bit more. But yeah, I'm not very optimistic because I don't want to be let down again.
Indeed, and it's saying that basically don't be surprised if you see Charles Leclerc and Carlos Sainz fighting for pole position in qualifying, which they do tend to do. They've got very good qualifying pace in those Ferraris, but only they'll fall away come Sunday because the race pace of the Ferrari is nowhere in comparison to its qualifying time, and it's surprising that there's such a big gap between qualifying and the race itself. And also strategy does play a part to that, don't get me wrong. So, I mean, is it the less that we talk about Ferrari that they'll do better, hopefully?
I mean, it's so difficult. They've got just every resource available to them, including a Le Mans winning team. I keep reiterating this point over all of the Grand Prix weekends. But I mean, they've won Le Mans 24 hour. That is one of the most difficult races in motorsport to do. Surely you take some of those lessons and move it into your Formula One team. Hopefully, they have already started to do that, and we'll see the progress quite soon. But I mean, uh, just the constant strategy, bad calls is just it's beyond a joke at this point. They just are not seeming to learn from their mistakes.
No, not at all. However, we talk about McLaren, and I did say McLaren were going to drastically improve. They did drastically improve rather in Silverstone, and we could see some great things from them in Hungary. But Lando Norris is saying probably not, because McLaren, he says, are terrible when it comes to slow corners, and of course. The Hungaroring's got plenty of these, got lots of high downforce corners. And it says, in an interview here, he says, I would say pretty terrible in the slow speed corners with regards to the McLaren fighting and matching with the Red Bull. Extremely difficult to drive. I feel if we're getting excited, and I accept that, but we're going to go to a couple of tracks coming up where I'm sure people are going to be saying, what have you done now? Like, has it got it's got bad all of a sudden? So he says, we've improved a lot of things. Tire degradation, there are things you want to try, and tire cooling and blah blah blah, but nothing big from that side. It's just Silverstone allowed us to look after the tires nicely, keep them in good condition, simple as that. So a lot of it is track specific. I don't want to get too excited. Good things have to come from the upgrades, but there's still plenty of things that are a mile away from, say, competing in certain places, with even Mercedes and as a whole package competing with the Red Bull. So yeah.
Well, I feel that he's certainly downplaying their performance in Silverstone, as you do as a racing driver, because now you've got expectations from all of your fans to get back on that podium. I mean, that car certainly, I think, still has the pace off of Austria. Austria isn't necessarily a very high downforce track, but it does have some of those corners where you do require a lot more downforce than, say, Silverstone. But yeah, off the back of Silverstone, it does look like that is the track that their car is best suited to at the moment. Hopefully, they will be able to learn some lessons though, and be able to fight here in Hungary.
Indeed, and of course, Daniel Ricciardo is coming back to this Grand Prix, and we're just about wrapping things up for the preview. So, Daniel Ricciardo, where's he going to finish, Reese?
I'm going to be optimistic here. Of course, it's Danny Rick's first weekend back in Formula One in 6 months. It's going to be difficult. I'm going to say, though, that he does outperform his teammate, Yuki Tsunoda, which is already not the easiest thing to do. Not saying Yuki Tsunoda's incredible, but he's had a lot more time in that car.
Yeah.
Um,
Does he finish top 10?
I don't know about if he's going to finish top 10. I'm going to say, though, that he out-qualifies Sergio Perez this weekend.
Okay. So, surprise drivers.
Quite optimistic.
Yeah, that's quite optimistic. So, surprise drivers for me, I think we're going to watch this weekend that are going to perform quite well, just to wrap things up, is I reckon Danny Rick will perform quite well. Alex Albon will perform very well. And I actually reckon Oscar Piastri will also be quite a bit of a surprise this weekend. And who are your 3 surprise drivers?
Well, now that you've taken all of them, don't have many to
You could choose the same
say
ones.
now. Well, I don't think you can ever discount Charles Leclerc. He is fighting really hard to still get that Ferrari as high up as it can get. He might have a good qualifying session, but once again in the race, they might just not have the degradation on their side. So I'm going to say Charles Leclerc. Danny Rick, I am really looking forward to having him. So I'm going to say he is going to be a standout, as will this weekend. Alex Albon is certainly one of my absolute favorites as well to watch. And then lastly, I'm going to say Lando Norris.
A whole spread of drivers, and of course, we still expect, though, the Red Bull with these new upgrades to improve even more so, and we'll probably see Max Verstappen on pole. But that wraps up our preview here. So, Reese, unless there's anything that you've got in the back there,
no, nothing more from my side.
Yeah, I think we're going to head on out. Thank you guys so much for watching this preview for Hungary, and we'll of course be streaming all of the sessions on this channel right here on Forever Sports. This is Forever Motorsports, of course. You've been joined by me and Reese, and thanks once again to Bitdefender for sponsoring the channel and for all of their work there. Go check them out in the description as well. But otherwise, guys, we'll see you in the next one. Thank you so much for watching. Cheerio.
Hello everybody and welcome to Forever Motorsports on Forever Sports. Today's guide on how to watch the 2023 Formula One season, which kicks off this weekend. The Bahrain Grand Prix will officially get the season underway, and there is just so much action between now and about November when the season will come to an end. Just races all around the world, more sprints, more races, a busier season than ever, and yeah, I think it's going to be a very interesting season to see exactly if Red Bull can continue to sort of assert their dominance, if you're going to see Mercedes coming back, what are we going to see? And the question is, how can you watch all the action throughout the season? Now, the first things first is that we will do videos for every single Grand Prix. We will do videos on how to watch that particular Grand Prix on a free-to-air broadcaster. Which means that as long as you subscribe to the channel and you monitor us, you'll be able to sort of find out how to watch every single race on a free-to-air broadcaster. And so make sure you subscribe to the channel for that. Now, to be able to do that, though, however, there are very different broadcasters from around the world. So what you're going to do is you're going to get yourself a VPN. Now, we recommend using ExpressVPN because we've tried and tested it, and it just works. So what you're going to do, link in the description, get ExpressVPN, get yourself that year subscription as well. If you sign up for a year subscription, you'll actually get an extra 3 months for free, which means you'll be able to start watching from this weekend, and it'll cover you up to about June next year. You're going to install ExpressVPN, and it's going to come up something look like that. And if you click on the right-hand side there, you're then going to get these this pop-up, and those are all the locations of all the various places where you can, connect to sort of servers. And what it does, it kind of geolocates your device. So, for example, for Bahrain, there are free-to-air broadcasts in Belgium as well as in Austria. So you connect to those locations and you go to those sites. But if you totally wanted to watch the entire season, my recommendation would be to get F1 TV Pro. Now, it is only available in certain locations, that being the US, the Netherlands, Sweden, I think Spain, Germany. Then you'll need to use ExpressVPN if it's not covered in that region. And again, so what you do is you go on ExpressVPN, you go and select the United States, and then all you do is you turn it on. As soon as this goes green, it means that you are currently connected to a server in the United States. You're then going to go and sign up for F1 TV Pro, which is $45 for for the entire year. Alternatively, it is $5 a month, which is really not a lot of money. And you can get so many more things. You can watch onboard footage with individual drivers. You get behind-the-scenes content. It really is the best way to watch Formula One. However, you can only watch it in those regions. And that is where a VPN, like ExpressVPN, will come in clutch and enable you to really sort of get the most out of F1 TV. Check out the description for a sort of step-by-step guide on exactly how you can do it. Apart from that, we'll see you guys throughout the season.
Hello everybody and welcome to Forever Motorsports on Forever Sports. For this, the Formula 1 Free Practice 3 in Hungary. You are joined by me, Mark, and from Reese as well. And we've got all of the things ready. We are ready here in Hungary, and news of the day is that I mean, quite frankly, looking at these visuals, it looks like a stunning day in Budapest. It's not too many clouds. There are a couple of clouds, but they're small, little white wispy ones. The wind seems to be a bit of a thing, but apparently it's very hot. It's quite a hot day there, so we're looking for what should be a clean, easy session, not like we saw yesterday. So it should be absolutely fine and perfect for most drivers. Maybe a little bit of wind causing a little bit of issues, but otherwise it should be fine. And Reese, what are your thoughts about what's going to happen today?
Yes, I think it's going to be an interesting session ahead of us. Some teams with their upgrades going to be doing some more testing, those of the Red Bulls as well as AlphaTauri. We'll be watching them quite closely to see if they find some more pace in this session. I do agree with you though, Mark. The wind could prove to be quite difficult here. It does look like it's gusting quite heavily in certain sections. So we could get drivers just getting pushed wide or missing their braking points in certain corners.
And of course, we've got a poll running, and it's pretty much just a bit of a joke poll. But at the same time, I think there's a little bit of concern building with regards to Red Bull. Of course, Perez crashed out in practice 1 yesterday, and practice 2, both Red Bulls didn't look very quick with their brand new upgrades. Now, in the poll, most people believe they're sandbagging, or otherwise they didn't try to go for full performance. But I mean, what are your thoughts? Do you think they've actually maybe like they've tried these upgrades and it's not quite worked straight away?
Well, I don't necessarily know. I think possibly yesterday during FP2 they purely did a testing program that they had planned for FP1 and FP2, just compiled them both into FP2 because they didn't get any running done in FP1 due to the rain, as well as that red flag from Sergio Perez. Just on a note for him as well, Helmut Marko said that he has used up all of his spare parts already for this race weekend.
So basically say don't crash again.
Yes, as in if you crash again, you're going back to the old spec. So he's used all of his new upgrades. They are not going to be happy about that for sure, because that would have been expected to go over the next few race weekends. But anyways, it's happened.
Indeed, and we do see that some of our regulars are joining us, and otherwise some more fans joining us across the world. We very much welcome you to Forever Sports and Forever Motorsports, the stream here on the channel. Be sure to like the video, hit that like button, and subscribe to the channel if you are new, and turn on those notifications so that you can be notified about all future uploads and live videos with regards to Formula 1 and all other sports that we do cover. I see a couple of our regulars, as I say. Rod Shepherd here is joining us from Thailand. Roshan is joining us from Nepal. Rysarth here saying, expect chaos from Ferrari and you won't be disappointed. And I think that's a very apt description. If you expect Ferrari to do stupid things, then you'll probably be right. So yes, indeed, we have the titles running, and
well, I mean,
yeah.
We've been pretty disappointed in the past few months by Ferrari, so yeah, not necessarily expecting too much from them. It's normally just a nice surprise when they do perform quite well, but then they tend to throw it away in the next race or two. So
yeah,
we are quite critical of Ferrari, but we are still big fans, of course.
The problem is with Ferrari is that you just always expect them to do more and to really compete, and they've just really struggled to this year. But let's hope that they can do something here in Hungary. The track is looking beautiful, and yeah, of course, Charles Leclerc did get the fastest time yesterday, and we talk about Ferrari. So maybe it's a little bit of an indication that he can do something today, you know, in qualifying. And of course, it's a very different qualifying session coming up later. So this is going to be, I think there's going to be a lot of practice attempts in this session to get used to that. I'm sure we're probably going to see hard, medium, and soft tire quali attempts throughout this entire session. I think you're going to see them try them all to see what what they're in store for later on in qualifying.
Well, of course, yes, because we do have that new qualifying format for this race weekend. We have them having to run the hard tires through into Q1, the medium tires in Q2, and the softs in Q3. So it's going to be quite difficult in Q1, of course. It may cause a few shakeups, really.
Yeah, indeed. And we've seen more people are joining us in the comments. Keep sharing the video, guys. Let's get our viewers up and running. Let's get some discussions going as well. I see Super Rankin here saying hi from Australia. We've got Joel Simon, another one of those more regular people from Guyana. We've got people watching from that's a new one. Paramaribo, Suriname, South America. Interesting. And yeah, it's just a couple of comments just saying, I think we can say that... can now say that about Perez with regards to his, he's definitely on the final straw. And yeah, weather conditions here, clear, 24 degrees, track temperatures 44 degrees, humidity is quite high though, at 48%, and it's got a southwest wind of 7.9 kilometers an hour, and I reckon that wind is going to have a little bit of an effect on the session as well. So
just a few more stats about the track. The top speed here is 310.3 kilometers an hour, 192.8 miles an hour, with 14 turns and an elevation of 34.62 meters. So quite a difficult track here, not spent at full throttle all that much. Full throttle is, I think it's only around 55% here, Mark. Our tire compounds are the C5, C4, and C3, which are the three softest of the tire compounds in the Pirelli range this season.
Yeah, so it's certainly gearing up towards a good session here. Practice 3 in Budapest here, the Hungary, and it is. It's as you say, it's 55% full throttle spent on the track. It's quite a high downforce track. It suits certain teams more than others. And supposedly McLaren, it doesn't suit them here, but they seem to be putting in half decent times still, so maybe we will see them improve upon their usual standings in a downforce circuit. Of course, they did very well in Silverstone. Let's see how they can fare here, and of course also eyes are all on Daniel Ricciardo, but let's not try and talk about him too much today. Let's just add him to the grid and let's see how he fares. And AlphaTauri, will he outperform Yuki Tsunoda today? All yet to be seen. All the drivers in their cars just 1 minute and 10 seconds away from the start of free practice 3.
I see we have our regular Teo back in the chat. Very happy that we have Mark once again alongside us for commentary, because we missed him yesterday in FP2 due to load shedding.
Very upsetting.
He is back today. Just watching on Oscar Piastri. He is still out of the car, not yet getting ready to go with 45 seconds. Yuki Tsunoda gearing up to get going straight away. I think he'll get out of the pits quite quickly. I think a lot of drivers are going to be wanting to get some running here today, especially those with upgrades like the Red Bulls and AlphaTauri drivers. Alpine don't seem too keen to get out there all that quickly either, with Esteban Ocon still out of the car right now.
But he did win the Hungarian Grand Prix. It's a good point. He did win the Hungarian Grand Prix in 2021, and I do believe I think it's his only win in Formula 1, isn't it? Ocon?
I think it may be, yes.
So
he did win the race here. It was a brilliant win in a year. I think that was when Max Verstappen was taken out in the first corner by Valtteri Bottas.
Indeed. So a very controversial race, but nonetheless a great race for Ocon, and I'm sure he's going to be hoping he can do something similar this weekend here in 2023, 2 years on, of course. And Reese, we've got the letter A, and I do literally mean the letter A is asking a question. It says, what are your thoughts on Sargent? So, yeah, what are your thoughts on Sargent?
He didn't have the greatest start to the season, not really ever getting close to the points. He was pretty much a regular at the back of the grid. He seems to be finding his feet a little bit better now in the second half of the beginning of the season. He's almost gotten into the points a few times. I think he has gotten into the points once. He's not doing too bad now, but he still needs to make some improvements if he needs to stay in that race seat.
Indeed, and I think, you know what, he's sort of salvaged the season a little bit in the last couple of races. Still not done exceptionally well, don't be wrong, but certainly done enough, I think, to sort of take his name a little bit out of the conversation for now. But it still comes down to the next 2 race weekends. We have 2 race weekends until that summer break of 3 weeks, and I think he does need to make sure he performs in the next 2 race weekends as well. He needs to perform here and, of course, next week. And if he does that, I'm sure he'll keep his seat for the remainder of the season. However, if he should fail to do well in these next two weekends and come 20th or otherwise 19th in both, I'm sure then Williams have got to ask some serious questions with regards to whether or not they keep Logan Sargent in that seat.
Yes, I mean, there's people like Mick Schumacher waiting in the wings, people with a lot of potential who could benefit from that seat. So we'll have to wait and see what he's able to do before the summer break, maybe, and then, yeah, go from there.
Sorry about that. I just had my phone volume on for some reason. I never have my phone on volume on. But yes, I just see on my word a little bit of overtaking there in the pits, although I think the Alfa Romeo is pulling to the side. And we have, of course, got the practice 3 underway, 58 minutes remaining, and the man, the myth, the legend, the number 1 driver on the grid, Max Verstappen, has made his way out onto track to get some laps under his wing. And of course, Red Bull already want to get as many laps as possible. In practice 1, they got literally 0. Max Verstappen did not make his way out during the rain period. And Sergio Perez, of course, crashed out within 4 minutes of that session. And then practice 2 came along, and they were not looking particularly quick at all with their new upgrades. So I'm sure they're going to want to try and get some race simulations and otherwise quality simulations out the way and make sure that the car is performing all 100% in the session before qualifying later today.
Yes, they'll be wanting to get in some good practice. Sergio Perez will certainly be wanting to get some good practice in as well to get his confidence up a little bit for qualifying, where you do need to take those extra risks. And I mean, yesterday, just taking unnecessary risks, 3 minutes into the session, dipping a wheel onto the grass while trying to get as wide as possible into turn 6. Yeah, just careless mistake, but it happens, of course. It will affect his confidence, though, certainly into that corner coming qualifying later this afternoon.
Indeed. Now, I see quite a few cars that made their way out. Daniel Ricciardo setting what would be our first quick lap, or otherwise sort of quick
Someone's
lap.
already stolen that middle sector away from him, though.
Yes,
Magnussen is on a flyer, that's why.
Yeah, so we're looking at these laps going to tumble very, very quickly, so I'm not going to be concerned about times too much until about 10 minutes time, when we're probably going to get a bit more of a understanding of the times. We see most of the guys out on, I think it's mediums and softs basically right now. Don't seem to see anybody on hard tires. Magnussen does go quickest.
Ricciardo went fastest, then Magnussen went fastest, and we also have Verstappen on a hot lap out there, setting some purple sectors. So these times are going to be beaten very quickly, and this track is going to be ramping up very, very fast this afternoon. I mean, we've had Porsche Cup racing, we've had Formula 2, Formula 3. It's going to be evolving very, very quickly out there.
Indeed, and we're very, very quickly climbing in numbers in the chat as well as on the stream. We're almost up to 200 viewers. Let's keep that number building, guys, and in order to keep that number building and to get the chat going, what needs to happen is you guys need to like the video. So all of you watching right now need to go and hit that like button and subscribe if you are new, and otherwise, quite genuinely, there's no reason why not. It certainly helps us. It helps you as well, because it means that more people join, we can get some more discussion going and improve the stream as we go along. Just 55 minutes left here, and Charles Leclerc we're following on board here, who of course topped practice 2. Let's see how he fares in this practice session now.
A little bit wide into turn 5, but still faring alright, going a little bit over the curbs and bottoming out, but he seems alright now, going through turns 7 and 8, looking very neat and tidy through there, through turn 9 and 10 now, also looking quite composed. It's looking very stable, not bouncing around all that much.
I was about to say, Ferrari's actually looking very, very good.
Yeah, flat out through that very fast right-hander. Verstappen has put the fastest lap time in at 1:18.4. Let's see what happens to Charles Leclerc now.
Indeed, and Charles Leclerc now coming across, I don't think he's going to go quicker, but I think this is still going to be a relatively okay time. Tyres that Max Verstappen's got on this car, just remind me, is it mediums or is it soft?
I actually didn't see his hot lap, so I will check on his onboard quickly and see what he's running.
Indeed, and people there just in the, I see Pure Blooders. Mediums, okay, mediums. I see Pure Blooders in the comments. Welcome back to the stream, Pure Blood. You know, you're always in the comments, a couple of you guys, and I mean, you guys aren't members of the channel. You aren't anything. We see you as regular names, but you know, there's no identification to say that you're part of the family yet. You know, go and become members, guys. Come on, You want to have those special things next to your name, make you seem important, because that's what you guys can be. Otherwise, see a few more people coming into the comments here, and people saying we should start a Discord server. We do actually have a Forever Sports Discord server, but it's been a bit dormant for a while. But maybe we'll revive it up, and we'll try and get a community going.
It is also for members.
Yes, I think it is actually also for members, so
Yeah.
maybe that's also the reason why. But yeah, we'll certainly get that going, and otherwise, if you guys are interested in it, I'll go find out some information from my superiors in the company and find out what's happening there. We're now following on board. I think this is with Alex Albon. He's on soft tires. He's doing a fast run here. Let's see how he fares. He's been one of my favorite drivers of the season, coming towards the end of Sector 1 now, and he's about 0.5 seconds away from Max Verstappen's time. Max Verstappen, of course, on a set of mediums, so going a little bit slowly here, Alex Albon, but otherwise, yeah, hopefully we'll see some decent racing from him.
Been asked in the comments, will Danny be able to get close to Yuki this season? Pureblood has asked that. I mean, they're close at the moment in the times. I mean, I say close, but Ricciardo's 2 seconds off of Tsunoda's time there.
Or 1.5 seconds, but yeah.
Yeah, sorry, it was a bit blurry for me. I just saw 5 and a 7.
But yeah, I mean, look, I don't think these times are too indicative yet. You know, of course, Ricciardo's not got into the AlphaTauri all season. It's his first time really going around in it, whereas Yuki Tsunoda's been there all season. So Daniel Ricciardo's got to get used to the car, but I'm sure he'll get used to it quickly, and I'm sure he'll compete with it. I mean, Daniel Ricciardo's been in some very, very big teams in Formula 1. Has done very well with them over the last few years in Formula 1. You know, he's raced for McLaren, he's raced for Red Bull, he's raced for Renault. So he's done well for most of those teams, of course.
All over the road.
Yeah, I was about to say, completely different to Charles Leclerc.
It's the wind. He's saying he's struggling with the wind. I mean, look how he's fighting that car there. He almost lost it, I mean, 5 or 6 times, bottoming out through turn 3. And yeah, just really struggling out there.
People saying that they're broke, they can't afford memberships. This is rubbish, people. Get that money. No, I'm joking. Of course, you guys don't have to do that. There's no obligations for anything. And of course, if you guys want to support the channel, those are certain ways you can. Otherwise, we do very much appreciate you guys in the comments. Otherwise, and liking the video and subscribing. That's all you guys need to do. It's nothing you actually need to do. Just enjoy the content. But yeah, a whole lot of people joining us. Let's get up to 300 viewers, guys. We're getting there. We're getting there very, very quickly. But yeah, I think Sainz was really struggling with the wind there, and you know, it was very different to watch.
And you also said that it's going to be an issue in this session, and certainly has shown to be an issue already. But I mean, already quite quickly, Verstappen and Perez showing their true hands now with those upgraded Red Bulls. Perez quite close now to the back of Verstappen.
Yeah, I was about to say their times are exceptionally close, just about 0.08 seconds between them. The Perez is on the radio saying tires are not cooling down, and the engineer said, yeah, I think this is what we're going to have to live with in qualifying. So clearly tire degradation is going to be a problem. Yeah.
Track temperature is just so high. It means that you're not able to cool your tires down at all. Big lockup for Kevin Magnussen out there on track.
I was just watching that.
Big lockup. Wow.
Wasn't as big as Perez. Although it's nearly there, but Perez's lockup was probably, as somebody said in the comments yesterday, the biggest lockup I've ever seen, and it was a huge lockup. Just watching a replay of Sergio Perez just making a correction there and giving up on his lap.
Being pushed up by the wind, I assume. Taya asking if we have an Instagram or something. I think we should actually start our own Formula 1 based Twitters, Mark.
Twitters, Instagrams, the whole lot. I do think we need to get that all sorted. But guys, we will get that sorted for you. I think there's a whole lot of behind-the-scenes structures that we are changing in the company, and we're going to make it even better content all for you in the coming weeks. So do be sure to stick around, and we'll give you some updates and information about that. But of course, the only way that all of those do well is if you guys do support it. So if we do and set up things, be sure to go and follow, like, and engage with it, and tell everybody else and engage with everybody else so that we can get a really, really cool community going and build an audience there. So yeah, I think a lot of things are coming in the coming weeks, so be sure to stick around and look out for that.
There's some big news coming in the coming weeks, but we will be sure to update you on that when the time comes, of course.
Yeah, I think the company right now is very much focused on various projects, and it's very exciting, so stick around because it's going to be a very exciting company to follow. Me and Reece here, of course, managing with Formula 1 here. Reese going to be taking that a bit more forward coming in the future. Yes, so Perez now on a flying lap on mediums here. 0.1 seconds behind Verstappen in Sector 1. So still a little bit down on his teammate, but I think maybe struggling with the tyre temperature could probably be a factor. And also the wind is certainly picking up.
Yes, I think he's also just on a bit more of a long run now on those tyres. As Gasly goes up into third on a set of softs, I mean, that's a bit more expected, to be honest. Interesting to see how strong those Red Bulls are on a set of mediums.
Yeah,
and possibly on high fuel runs.
Yeah,
with
exactly.
Sergio Perez being out there for a while.
I've got the biggest itch on my ankle right now. I do apologize if you see me just like coming out of shot and coming back into shot, just trying to sort that out. But otherwise, yeah, Verstappen and Perez very much firmly ahead of the rest of the field. Gasly on a set of softs, 0.8 seconds behind them, almost 0.9. And Leclerc a whole second behind on those medium tyres. But again, we don't know what runs they are doing. So, you know, the others could be running high fuel, or maybe Red Bull have now figured out their setups with those cars.
Still a lot of people yet to come out on track with the likes of both Mercedes. I think on outlaps at the moment. I think as well we have Alonso on an outlap, Norris with no time set, Hülkenberg with no time set, as well as Oscar Piastri with no time set. Also, both of the Alfa Romeos and the Williams of Logan Sargent. So a lot of people,
quite a few people still not setting lap times. Yeah. So Russell now.
Time, though, not looking all that promising right now.
Who? Sorry.
Daniel Ricciardo.
Oh, Daniel Ricciardo. No, I was about to say, still a little bit slow down there in 11th. The slowest time that's been put on the board. Russell now has come to the end of Sector 1 on medium tyres, and it's a bit closer to Max Verstappen's time. Still 0.3 seconds off. But just goes off the track there a little bit. That would be track limits if it was a session for qualifying. So he probably needs to watch for that. I'm just seeing these flags being waved here for drivers to get out the way. It's starting to become a little bit busy, the track. Although, just as I said, that a few people have dived off into the pits. But yeah, a little bit of traffic out there. Quite a few cars out. And Russell now trying to get some laps in. Both Red Bulls in the pits and both Ferraris also in the pits, notably. Sargent is still out there on track. And he's not doing too badly down there in 7th with those soft tyres. He went quicker than his teammate Alex Albon, which is a bit of an abnormal thing. But Russell now we're on board with. He's coming towards the end of his lap. Let's see how he fares compared to the rest of the field on medium tyres as he comes down the start-finish straight now. Crosses the line in a 1:19.4. So not the quickest lap from them, but it's the first lap out there today. So
I mean, it's ahead of the Ferraris, so it's not too bad. But it has been a while since those first runners did set their hot laps on a bit more of a greener circuit than it is now.
Just looking at all the engineers inside that Mercedes garage, and I'm sure
Alonso
they're probably
finishes his first lap. He goes into 7th. Not great for him.
No, not at all.
Both of the Astons on soft, so you would expect them to be quite a lot faster out there, unless it is possibly just the soft tyres are burning up a bit too quickly in this heat.
Yeah, I think that might be exactly it. I think maybe the soft tyres aren't going too quickly because they are just really struggling with the heat. It is quite hot on track. It's about 45 degrees or 44 degrees Celsius. So quite difficult for these drivers to keep the tyres down. We've got 45 minutes left of the session. And both Red Bulls very firmly in first place with medium tyre runs. And the two Alpines of Ocon and Gasly in 3rd and 4th with soft tyres. Then it is Russell and Leclerc on medium tyres, and Hamilton now in 7th with a medium tyre run as well. The two Aston Martins of Alonso and Stroll in 8th and 9th on soft tyres.
Yes, quite good conversations happening in the comment section there about what is happening with regards to the driver market at the moment. It's certainly all up in the air. I am working on an edited video on the absolute madness that is the silly season that is going on right now. It's certainly going to be quite interesting to follow over the next few months, and we might see a couple transfers happening over the mid-season break.
Yeah, I mean, it is, as I say, everyone always calls it silly season because some of the things that happen are just beyond comprehension. Actually, it's quite difficult. Formula One, you know, there's other sports, it's quite easy to predict and you know about news way before it happens, but Formula One tends to be quite sudden and out of nowhere. It's a much better sport in terms of keeping a bit of secrecy, and otherwise decisions are made very quickly, so nobody can really gear up towards the expected thing. Like Nick de Vries, yeah, it was rumored that he could be getting replaced, but was replaced so quickly, suddenly out of nowhere. Just
Piastri going over track
I saw
limits
that
there.
there.
Just sorry.
Yeah, no.
That's why I reacted the way I did. But yes, really hooking it up at the moment out on track. We'll have to watch what he's able to do on this lap.
And everyone
Sets a purple middle sector mark.
Yes, he has indeed, quite quick. Yeah, so let's see.
Piastri's on a good lap. I thought as much. He is looking very, very good out there. Final sector now coming through turn 13. Very, very neat and tidy through that corner. Ever so slightly on the white line now through turn 14. That very, very tricky 90-degree right-hander. DRS now wide open, getting a good toe from the AlphaTauri in front of him. He goes third with a 118.9. That is 0.4 off of the Red Bulls at the moment on a set of softs. Red Bulls on a set of mediums.
Yeah, and if you guys are looking for a way of watching Formula 1, we watch on F1 TV Pro. Of course, that is the official coverage. And if you guys are looking for a way to watch Formula 1 and watch it for free and safely, be sure to go and look in the description of the video. And you'll see a couple of links there that link to ExpressVPN and Bitdefender, one of our partners, or both of our partners. And you can go and follow the instructions, and otherwise look at the channel and find the video on how you can watch F1 for free. And you've got a whole explanation there and the whole instructions on how you can do all of that, and completely legal as well. So be sure to go and check that out if you guys are struggling to find streams to go and do it. We do provide you with the means of doing that, exactly that. And otherwise, go and put it on and get us back on your phone or something, and continue the chat. Of course, we'd love to have all of you guys here in the chat continuously. Maybe use us for commentary. Ocon's now going around, coming around into the final bend.
Up into fourth.
Up into fourth, indeed. So the Alpines are looking half decent, but they are still on those soft tires versus Red Bull on those mediums, just looking so quick.
Yes, I mean, it's interesting. I've never really noticed it till now how high up he sits in this car, because he is quite tall. You just rarely see a lot more of his helmet because it's bright red. I think that's why I'm noticing it a bit more. Comparing to Max Verstappen out there on track at the moment, possibly ramping up for another hot lap. He was in the pits for a bit, so possibly is ramping up for another hot lap. He comes through that final corner now, DRS wide open. Talk us through this lap, Mark.
Yeah, indeed. I mean, it is quite a hot lap. It's very, very hot here in
DRS
Budapest.
not open, actually. He's doing a race.
Yeah, he's just doing race simulations here, so he's going to be quite a bit slower than his earlier laps, so not actually going to be that great a time. But at the same time, maybe we try and see what are their race pace times looking like. So yeah,
yesterday's race pace was looking set at around a 121. Anything faster than that is quite a good race pace. So let's see what Max can do on this lap.
Indeed. So sector 1 time compared to his fast time earlier, I think it's going to be about a whole 1.6 seconds off. So that's already going to be a bit slower than the 121s if he keeps that pace up, because of course he put in a 118.4 and he's already sitting at about 120 for his time, and I'm sure you'll lose more pace in sector 2.
Very high on fuel, Mark.
Yeah, so I think this is going to be about a 124, 123 around about there. It's going to be quite a slow lap here for Max Verstappen, so don't be surprised by that.
Alonso moves his way up into 6 on his set of softs. I do think that those softs are possibly just burning out on the track at the moment because of the heat. Max Verstappen making his way through the final sector now, just so gingerly on the brakes, keeping it so smooth though. Hopefully this Ferrari will get out the way for him.
Quite a lot of degradation on his left tyre, just noting, Reese. I can just see there.
I think that's just a little bit of pickup.
Yeah. Doesn't seem to be going away though. Oh, there you go. Now it's gone.
Yeah, it's gone now.
It's just gone off now. And he does cross the line at a 124.2. So, yeah,
very, very high.
So much higher fuel load, of course. Almost a whole 5.5 seconds slower than his quickest time of the day so far. So, Zhou has moved, by the way. Noting this. Zhou has moved into second position at 118.5 on soft. So, that's quicker than Perez, but ever so slightly slower than Verstappen. So, great lap from the Alfa Romeo driver. So, the softs clearly working a little bit better now for that Alfa Romeo. With just 14 minutes left of the session.
Being asked about Nico Hülkenberg, if he's out yet. He is currently on an out lap, so he should be putting in a fast time quite soon. Let's see what he can do if that bleached blonde hair allows him to get any faster out there. Bottas also finding some good track time out there, putting himself up into second, ever so slightly behind Max Verstappen, 0.011 seconds behind him. I think this track is certainly ramping up quite quickly now. We have Carlos Sainz on a hot lap out there. Let's see what he can do now, coming across that middle sector marker. Not being shown the lap times, unfortunately.
Very upsetting.
I think it's not too bad. Oh no, it's
poor.
quite far off. He's on
It's
a
poor.
race run for sure.
Yeah, indeed. But nonetheless, looking at our stream right now, we are ramping up towards 400 viewers. So let's keep it going, guys. Like the video again. If you guys want better discussion, hit that like button, smash that like button, subscribe to the channel, and turn on notifications. And otherwise, join me and Reese for all the sessions, because we do love to have a great chat here. Just looking at the questions here, saying Hulkenberg's not out yet. Indeed, he's just got on his out lap, so he's just about to go put in his lap. And no one is really pushing if Alpha is up there. I think it's just, as Reese says, the track is evolving. Soft tires seem to be working a little bit better than they were earlier, so you'll start to see these lap times fall. Just watching a replay here of Charles Leclerc coming towards the start of his lap, and he just has a big snap as he's about to start his lap, so really not great. So he basically had to give up his lap straight away.
Yeah, no, that is not very good from the Ferrari. Looking like a bit of a handful to manage out there. Oscar Piastri on a flyer out there now, setting the fastest middle sector, coming through the final sector now. Let's see what this lap is for him. This will put him, he stays in fifth, unfortunately. I was expecting him to make some gains, but through the final sector, possibly just struggling there a little bit. Someone asking, what is the projected weather for tomorrow tomorrow in the race? Rod Shepard asked that. It is projected to be very, very hot out there, so possibly quite similar to what the temperatures are right now.
Magnussen right now setting a purple sector.
Kevin
Sorry,
Magnussen.
just noting there. Now he's in that Haas setting a purple sector, notably on medium tyres, which is of course what Verstappen managed to set his quickest time on. So let's see how he fares around his lap. Of course, track is definitely evolving. I'm sure you'll see these times start to tumble, and also maybe the tire, the runs are going to be a bit lighter on fuel. Maybe they've got brand new tires out for this run. Although he's dropped quite a bit off in the second sector, 0.49 seconds off in the second sector after setting a purple first sector. Hulkenberg's teammate following him quite closely, and seemingly putting in some very good lap times as well here. So let's see how Magnussen and Hulkenberg fares. They come around the final corner now. Magnussen comes onto the start, finish straight, and he moves himself right up into only ninth. So he really lost a lot of position time in those last couple of sectors. Hulkenberg's teammate moves into 12th position, his first lap of the day. So not too shabby for the Haas drivers there, but they could improve, of course, a little bit more. But notably on mediums, so not too bad for them.
Yellow flag in sector
2.
Someone's gone wide. I think it's green already, though.
Yeah, I think it's Alfa Romeo that went off ever so slightly.
Some people asking what's happening with the Ferraris. I think the Ferraris are focusing on some long runs at the moment in this heat, because it is very good data to gather for tomorrow in the race, because it's going to be very similar conditions to what we're seeing right now with this temperature and humidity possibly. So just trying to get some good race data. Yes, Hamilton having to cut the chicane into turns 7 and 8.
And it looks like Alonso here is doing a fast qualifying simulations on soft. So let's follow his lap with great interest here. Let's see what sort of times he can put in. He comes towards the first sector, and he looks a little bit slow still. So I think he's pretty much given up on this lap already.
Well, you say
sorry.
It's not too bad. It's 0.2 seconds off of
I've made it
right now.
as 80
let's see what
for some
happens
reason.
through the rest of the sector. Well within track limits, looking quite comfortable out there.
Just a bit sad that he didn't get a purple sector in sector 1. Oof.
Very hooked up through the middle sector, making a few corrections on the steering wheel, but flat out through this middle sector right now. Let's see what he can do coming across that timing marker. 0.6 down, so possibly sitting around Esteban Ocon in 8th.
Yeah, so it's not looking like it's going to be a great lap for Fernando Alonso here. And I was really hoping this was going to be a good weekend for Aston Martin, but early signs are saying probably not, which is very frustrating. But you never know. We can only wait until qualifying later to truly find out. And we've had some really different weather throughout the entire weekend so far, and some very disrupted sessions. So it's the first session that's in this weather, which is more likely going to be the same for the race tomorrow. So this is more accurate with regards to times that we're going to see. Now seeing an Alfa Romeo here start, I think a fast lap here. I think that is Bottas. It is indeed Bottas, and they're right up in second and third, Bottas and Zhou. So let's see what they can do now, and maybe they can
doing some race slims as well, not opening that DRS at all. Which indicates that they're just trying to see what their pace is going to be in the race tomorrow on a set of used softs.
Bottas?
Yes.
His DRS was open.
No, it wasn't. Not through the second DRS sector.
Oh, was there? Okay, I didn't see that. Nonetheless, we're almost up to 500 viewers. We're so close. We're literally almost there. Keep liking the video, guys, and subscribing. And otherwise, yeah, keep the chat going. And just see that somebody's asking why the AlphaTauri is still 6 seconds down. We have no idea what sort of race pace they're doing, or otherwise what sort of simulations they're doing. So don't think you need to be too concerned about
whatever
it yet.
it is.
Yeah, so I think they're down to 19th and 20th. Yuki Tsunoda's just gone on his out lap now. He's literally just got out the pits. So we'll see what sort of times he can put in now. And Danny Rick, I'm sure, will follow him out as well.
Yes, I think they may just be doing some really heavy fuel race sims at the moment. Yeah, because they are quite far off the pace. We do see Yuki Tsunoda on another out lap right now, so hopefully he'll be able to improve on his lap time. And then Danny Rick is still in the pits at the moment. A very busy track out there right now, as we do have 523 viewers watching alongside with us. Thank you very much for joining on our stream. Please do be sure to like the video so we do get recommended a bit more on YouTube, as well as subscribe to the channel if you enjoy the content that we put out for you.
Just watching a replay here, Reese, of Max Verstappen coming into, just having a bit of
I think it's the wind.
Just randomly lost the rear there. Yeah, I think that's the same corner that Science also really lost it. So I think the wind is just playing a little bit of its part there. I think that's what, turn 4, I think it is, or turn 5. It's running around the middle of the track. Yeah,
I think it was turn 3 actually.
Well, just before then, yeah. So Alex Albon now on his lap here, not going too badly here in the Williams, 0.25 seconds down of Verstappen's time, but going much quicker than his previous times on the set of soft tires, coming around the final couple of bends here. He's currently sitting in 17th. He's been one of the best drivers of the season. Let's see how he fares now in practice 3 as he comes across the line in a 118.59. So he moves up into 6th position. So a great little lap there from Alex Albon on a set of softs.
Yes, some good pace from him. I mean, still interesting to see how fast those Red Bulls are on a set of mediums. They're going to be, I think, very comfortable for qualifying, possibly.
Indeed, and I've just entered our poll that we had running for the first half of that session there, as we come towards 32 minutes left of practice 3, and the poll said, are Red Bulls slower or sandbagging? And most of you said, 58% rather, said sandbagging. 26% of you said they didn't go full throttle yesterday. 10% said they somehow made the car worse, and 4% of you said they've lost the pace. That was out of 212 votes. We'll get another poll up very shortly. And I think we're just looking here. Verstappen saying, is everything okay with the rear? A bit weird. He's saying that again, so I'm not sure whether it is wind. Maybe he's just losing it a little bit. But
just being told to do a brake balance change by his engineer, possibly to stabilize that rear a little bit more. It might. I think it's just the wind, because it is quite strong out there. I mean, this is quite important for the race tomorrow to get this sorted out, because we could have very similar conditions in the race. So he's going to want to be as comfortable in that car as possible. As much as he seems to be complaining, it still looks like he's very confident and stable out there. The car doesn't seem to be moving around too much. He doesn't need to make many adjustments either on the steering wheel. I mean, I think he's just forever chasing perfection out there on track.
Yeah, and also this is Max Verstappen, who does complain about everything, but you did see that he lost the rear a little bit, so maybe just needs to, as you say, make a few corrections to the setup, and otherwise just do a couple of checks in the car, and I'm sure he'll get it sorted out very quickly. Still in first position right now for P3 with 118.478 on medium tyres. The next 3 drivers, Bottas, Zhou, and Norris, all on soft tyres. Then Perez, his teammate, on a medium. And Albon in soft tyres. Now, notably, between 1st and 6th right now, there's only 0.1 seconds between all of them. So, very close times.
Yes, the times are looking very competitive at the moment, but, I mean, it's still difficult to tell because it's very mixed conditions out there. Daniel Ricciardo out on a set of hards, going faster than Yuki Tsunoda's time on a set of hards. Is Daniel Ricciardo back?
Look, I mean, we don't know.
It's like for like though, Mark. They both just set that time around the same time out on track. So,
well, look, maybe I'd love to see it. I'd love to see him come back. But yeah, I mean, look, on the hard tires, who knows at this point in time? We should see a whole lot of. There's a whole big train forming behind Hamilton here. Sorry, just notably. I think Hamilton's got Verstappen following him, and just behind Verstappen is, I think, a Williams or something or other. So, just needs to just want to watch this, because it's got to be quite a bit of traffic there. forming in the midfield. Oh, it's Verstappen, it's Hamilton and Russell, and then Verstappen, all three of them racing along. So it's quite interesting there, just watching a little bit of a lot of quick pace going there right between the three cars. So it's a bit of a good side-by-side comparison.
Yes, it is quite a good comparison. Just looking at that new poll that you've got up here now, and looking at some of the votes about it. A lot of people not necessarily interested in whether it's going to work or not. 29% saying, who cares? 35% could say it could make it interesting. And then 22% hate it, and 21% hate it, and 21% love it. Yeah, very interesting format though. I do understand why they have brought in this qualifying format in order to use more of the tyres throughout a race weekend, rather than having quite a lot of them wasted.
Yeah.
Noda on another hot lap out there, will he be able to improve on his lap time to Daniel Ricciardo?
He's already 1 second down on Max Verstappen's time, so he's got 0.5 to play with in this last sector in order to beat his teammate Daniel Ricciardo on his attempt here. I'm sure he probably will go a little bit quicker. It's of course the first time they're going around on hards, I believe, here for AlphaTauri. So as he comes across the line here, and he does go ahead, indeed, he moves into 70. They're 119.7, so now 1.26 seconds behind Max Verstappen's time. But Daniel Ricciardo, I think, is...
It's possibly going to go on another push lap.
Yes. So we'll follow him as well. And yeah, let's keep it going, guys. Keep liking the video. If you guys haven't hit that like button, please be sure to hit that like button. We've got only 55 likes and there are almost 500 of you watching. So absolutely no reason why we can't get those likes up to 100. Takes 2 seconds. Go hit that like button. And let's keep it going in the chat. Ask us some questions. Otherwise, your thoughts on... I think let's have some thoughts on Aston Martin and their drop-off this season. Because currently looking at them, Alonso with soft tyres sitting in 13th. Stroll and the hard tyres in 18th position. They're really looking very slow.
Yes, I mean, they are quite disappointing. I don't know what's happening with the Astons. Maybe they're just doing race paces. I hope they're just doing race pace out there. Hopefully we'll see them come out soon and do some quali runs. We have Hulkenberg out at the moment on a quali... Well, I say quali run, but his DRS isn't open, so probably some more race runs at the moment. Sign here is saying hello from Australia. Thank you very much for joining us from Australia. Great to have you in our chat.
I mean, Hulkenberg's hair. I mean, I know it's all to support Barbie this weekend and the whole, he's doing the Hulkenberg thing with his blonde hair, but my word, is it a bit, it's really not a great look, is it?
It's striking is what it is. Certainly very striking. But, I mean, it's gotten him some good publicity, at least for the weekend. Just watching the Williams of, I think it is Alex Albon coming into the pits now.
Or maybe, and I think Sargent, because Albon's been in the pits, so I think this is Sargent now being rolled back in.
No, it's Albon.
Is it Albon?
Yeah.
Yeah, it is Albon.
It's Alex Albon.
It is Albon. Hulkenberg going round on what seems just a race pace lap. It's not actually too bad on a set of mediums, because we saw race pace earlier from Max Verstappen at 124, and I'm sure he'll have got a little bit quicker than that with regards to his fuel. We don't know what the fuel he was running. But Hulkenberg is also currently on a race pace lap, and he's probably going to go sub 124. I think it's going to be a 122, maybe even a 121. A 121 indeed it is. A 121. 0.6, so not too bad the times, but again we don't know.
Looking very hooked up through that final sector now, coming through the final corner very quickly on a set of softs. Let's see what he's able to do now. He stays in 9th place though. Personal best final sector though for him, possibly going on another hot lap.
Yeah, he's only 0.3 seconds behind Verstappen's time, so he's really right there and thereabouts. And as we said this weekend, we reckon that actually this is going to be a very fun weekend to watch in Formula 1, and the only reason that you can make it fun is that people have to remember Max Verstappen is likely going to finish first. So don't watch it for that. Don't watch it to see if Max Verstappen finishes first and judge the entire Grand Prix on who wins, because I think the rest of the field is going to be very competitive. The likes of McLaren, Mercedes, Ferrari, and at the moment, I mean, even Williams looking half decent. So maybe we'll see lots of running and racing in the midfield that could be very close. I mean, the times right now being set in practice 3 are so close together that, you know, maybe it's a good indicator for what to expect in not just qualifying, but the race tomorrow as well.
Alonso starting a push lap now. Let's see what he can do on the set of softs coming through turn 1. Looking very stable, missing the apex though quite wide. Maybe that's his line that he prefers to take through there. DRS open yet again through the second DRS zone, braking hard for turn 3, not getting pushed out too wide like Max Verstappen did. I think it is also quite bumpy into that corner through turn 4. Now making his way up the hill through turn 5. 0.1 off of Verstappen's time at the moment. Not too bad through the first sector.
No, not too bad at all. So let's see if Alonso can improve upon it in second sector. So he's got a personal best in that first sector. He's on the soft, and again, we really want to see Aston Martin do well. They were rumored to supposedly suit this track quite well because they seem to ride curbs quite a lot better than most teams throughout the season, which is exactly what you can see Alonso doing, just really riding those curbs and putting the car well over that white line. With regards to his tyres each time he goes around corners. And again, Sector 2, he's still going ahead of Verstappen. So still going around very, very well here, Alonso, on these set of softs. Hopefully this is the start of Aston Martin showing what they can do this weekend. And again, there was the other team I was going to mention with regards to in contention for the rest of the field. I just didn't really want to say it because they didn't look very good so far. But now he's going to cross the line.
Alonso goes fastest.
Indeed. So 118.35, 0.1 seconds quicker than Verstappen. Notably, of course, Verstappen on those medium tyres. But a great little show of pace there from Aston Martin and from Fernando Alonso. 118.35 on a set of softs. And it's gone very well in all 3 sectors there. None of them purple, but all of them very, very good. And the quickest lap of the session.
I mean, just watching his hands throughout that lap, he looked so stable on the steering wheel. He barely ever had to make major corrections. Every now and then he'd make a quick twitch of a correction, but that's pretty usual. The car looks super well balanced and very, very comfortable through those long downforce corners. So looking quite promising for the Aston Martins, hopefully.
Yeah, my only concern with regards to his lap there is we went straight to the Aston Martin engineers inside the pit, and they didn't look very happy with life. They looked very unimpressed and otherwise concerned. I mean, maybe that's just the face, the look they have on their face. But we're normally so used to Aston Martin being quite cheery in the pit lane. Probably like I always think like the nicest pit crew out there and the nicest bunch of engineers in the team. But they just looked very upset there. I don't know if that was just me overreading it, but who knows?
I think they're probably happy, maybe just wanting a little bit more because they're only ever so slightly ahead of the Red Bulls on a set of mediums, and that lap time was set all the way at the beginning of the session. 21 minutes though still remaining of the session. 560 of you now watching alongside with us. Thank you very much for joining us. Please do share this video on social media or with your friends and tell them to join us on our live streams. Still a lot of coverage to come this race weekend. We've got qualifying later this afternoon. Be sure to join us for that, as well as we have the race tomorrow. The race is, of course, where everything matters, where you score your points, and well, it's what you work for, really. And we should have quite an exciting race ahead of us tomorrow with a very, very close midfield. And of course, qualifying is going to be very exciting this evening with the new format, having to use hards in qualifying 1, mediums in quali 2, and softs in qualifying 3. It should be very, very exciting. Be sure to join us for that.
Indeed, and we do see our poll is up there. We've got a lot of people watching the stream, so be sure to go and participate in the poll. It's asking exactly about the new quali format. Q1 has hards, Q2 has mediums, Q3 has softs. So go and participate in that poll. Let's see what people think about it. Sorry, Reece, you were going to say about Ocon, I think.
Ocon just finishing up a lap there, not looking too bad. Watching a replay now of Charles Leclerc coming through turn 4, having a little bit of a moment there and going wide over the curbs. Luckily not causing too much damage, but then watching Alonso behind him, overtaking him. People giving their predictions for qualifying. Supra Rankin saying, I have qualifying first Verstappen, second Alonso, and third Piastri. That's quite exciting. Piastri in third. Pure Blood then with his prediction. P1 Fernando, P2 Max, and P3 Charles Leclerc. I think the Ferraris need to make a bit more work on their lap times to get all the way up there.
But, of course, Leclerc did go quickest in the second session yesterday, so we haven't seen the Ferraris put any quali attempts in really today so far, so still got to wait and see what happens with regards to that. But I do enjoy how people still try and put Max, like, not in first position in terms of qualifying. I mean, it's happened, I think, 3 times the entire season where he's not finished first and he's finished second. And otherwise, yeah, of course, you had a couple of sessions where, it didn't go very well, where he finished in 15th or 16th or whatever it was. But I mean, I don't really count those. I'm saying, normal sessions, he almost always finishes as the quickest driver in the grid. So, it's interesting that people still like to imagine other drivers finishing ahead of him. And, of course, we'd love to see it happen. Fernando Alonso right now, of course, with the quickest lap of the day. I'm sure we'll go quicker than that. I'm sure we'll see 117s later today as well. But, yeah, I mean, your quality predictions, Reese, your top 3?
Well, Max P1, as you've just said. I mean, how could you not? Then, interestingly, I'm gonna put Norris P2 and Alonso P3.
Yeah, so you got 3 different drivers there in the top 3.
Three different constructors, yeah.
Yeah, I think. Oh, sorry, so I've probably got Max in first as well. Bottas just, by the way, sorry, I just want to note,
Yes,
he's
right,
going
one
very
behind
quickly
Alonso,
on a
faster
set of
than
hards.
Verstappen.
Yeah. Well, on Alonso's
This is
time.
going to be super, super exciting to see what people can do on these different tires, because
He's
they're
really
going
going
to
for it.
try to do something this afternoon.
I mean, he's really
He's
going for it, Bottas.
phenomenal
Yeah.
out on track.
I mean, don't get me wrong, it's not going to be quicker than Alonso's or anybody's times right near the top there, but it's a hard tire attempt. Okay, it's a little bit
This
slower
is
in
putting
second
him
two.
around Hamilton in P11.
Yeah, but
right
I mean,
now.
it's still looking a very good lap.
on a
He's
set
really
of hards.
pushing for it.
This is brilliant.
And Zhou's also going quite quickly. Now, the Alfa Romeos are actually looking quite quick so far today. They're sitting at 3rd and 4th with their soft tyre attempts, and their hard tyre runs right now are looking very, very good. So maybe we'll see a bit of a turn from Alfa Romeo, who's been probably one of the most useless teams in the grid. Only 0.7 seconds off of Alonso's time on hards. That's insane.
Yes, that's very good. That puts him around Ocon's time in 12th, which is set on a set of mediums. So, I mean, it's going to be very interesting. Just noting, interestingly enough, as we hit over 100 subscribers, we jumped about jumped to over 100 likes. We jumped to 600 viewers. So please do hit that like button. It really does help us get recommended more by the algorithm, of course.
Yes, the dreaded algorithm.
Yes.
But yeah, as you say, guys, it does certainly help us. It's just showing exactly how it works. If you guys like the video, we get more people on the stream. More people on the streams means better conversation and certainly a more entertaining video for all of you. Norris currently on a set of mediums. He set a new personal best. He's currently sitting in 5th on the grid. He's been racing very well these last few Grand Prix, and he's really, really pushing it now. I think you're going to see a lot of cars really trying to push the cars to the limit right now in this session, because they're trying to get the best data for qualifying later. Just 16.5 minutes left. So Norris now coming towards the end of Sector 2. Let's see how far away he is from Alonso. He's quicker than Alonso in Sector 2.
Wow.
My word.
What did I say? I thought Norris was going to be quick around here, and he's showing it on a set of mediums.
Yeah, so Norris is
really
going down
putting in some
very,
good
very
lap
quick.
times now. No purple sectors, but I mean, phenomenally fast out on track. Let's see what he can do. He slides around the final corner though. DRS open, and he goes fastest with a 118.0, 0.2 seconds faster than Fernando Alonso's time. Brilliant from Lando Norris.
Yeah, fantastic lap there on medium tyres as well. So he's gone 0.4 seconds more or less quicker than Verstappen, who obviously also did his attempt on medium tyres. So just 15 minutes left. I'm sure we're going to start to see these lap
And
times
he
tumble a little
drifted
bit.
through that final corner. I'm pretty sure he slid through that final corner. He didn't do that neatly.
No.
So there could be even more lap time in hand for him.
I know. So great run there from Norris, and again, just adding on to his great form that he's picked up in Formula 1 in the last couple of months, basically. But as we said, just watching that replay of the
Just watching a replay,
slide
he
run
did.
at the back.
I mean, brilliant to hold on to that. People giving their predictions here in the chat. Taslim saying Max P1, Norris P2, and Piastri. It's got an I at the end, not a Y.
But now it
he
makes
is
it look pastry.
performing very well.
I think if Piastri doesn't do well, he's just a pastry. That's going to be my thing. We see both Mercs now going to start what looks like quali attempts on soft tyres. Now this is going to be something very, very fun to watch. Hamilton and Russell coming around the track on their out laps here. Let's hopefully see some great laps here from Mercedes. We haven't seen soft tyres from them today. And both those cars looking very menacing, actually, following very close to each other. It actually looks quite scary, if I'm honest.
They always do look quite scary out on track, especially when they in full carbon like that. They just look so menacing. I do always like the full carbon Mercedes out there. Let's see what they're able to do on a set of softs. George Russell now starting
Starting
his
his
first hot
attempt.
lap on the soft.
And I'm sure it's going to be a quality attempt as well. You see the DRS wide open as he starts his lap there. And Alfa Romeo's following him, trying to get a little bit of a tug and a tow. Hamilton's dropped behind him, and Hamilton starts his lap now. So let's see how quickly they can get these first sector, second sector, and third sector times. I reckon you're going to see blitz times here. I think this is going to go quicker than Norris.
Yes, I think they're going to be quite good on a set of softs. Of course, we haven't seen the Red Bulls on any other tyre than a set of mediums. As I say that though, Verstappen is on an outlap. I don't know what set of tyres he's on. George Russell ever so slightly up on Lando Norris's first sector.
Yeah, I said this is probably going to be a quick lap. Yeah, let's see how Hamilton does as well. He's going to be following him. Will Hamilton put a purple sector in? He has put a purple sector in behind Russell. He's got a purple sector in sector 1. So let's see if Hamilton can continue this form. Maybe he goes quickest around ahead of his teammate George Russell, who's also setting some very quick times. Coming towards the end of sector 2 yet. Will he beat Norris's time? Just doesn't.
I think he will be at this moment. He's looking very, very fast in that first sector, so I think he's going to be quite hooked up in the middle sector. He is. He's 0.2 seconds up on Norris's time. He's very, very fast out there.
Hamilton's going so quickly, by the way. It's 0.26 seconds up on Norris's time already. He's set 2 purple sectors, sector 1 and sector 2. Let's see how he does in sector 3 as well on these
Russell
soft
goes
tires.
third. Russell finishes in third. Let's see where Hamilton can put himself now. Coming through that final corner. DRS now wide open. Let's see. He comes across the line. He does beat Norris's fastest time, and he goes 0.27 seconds faster.
Wow, word. Very quick time there from Lewis Hamilton. Of course, Lando Norris did his on mediums, which is more exceptional. But a 117 for the first time today, a 117.8. So great lap there from Hamilton. Just seeing the reason why George Russell didn't manage to get a quicker time than Lando Norris. Just went quite wide there in one of the turns. They're hitting quite a lot of the floor onto the curb there. So it's probably why he lost time. But as we say that, now we see Verstappen sitting in purple sector in sector 1, coming towards the end of sector 2. Will he go ahead of Lewis Hamilton? He's going around very, very quickly here. Sector 2, he comes across.
He's down in the middle sector.
Yeah.
But we often see how Verstappen holds back in the first 2 sectors and really releases it in the final sector in order to conserve his tires a little bit. Let's see what he can do now. Coming through turn 14, looking very hooked up through there. DRS now wide open, comes across the line. Where does he go? Only into second.
Yeah, so and that,
2 down on Hamilton's time.
And I don't think he was leaving anything out there on track. So I think, that was a very quick
he had
attempt.
some traffic.
Yeah,
he had
maybe.
some traffic.
Indeed. But still, 0.25 seconds is not as small a gap as you think it is. It's a little bit of a gap there to Hamilton. So Hamilton's going to be quite chuffed with that. Maybe Mercedes looking at this thinking, yeah, that's fantastic. Looking now in the Ferrari pits, they've not got tires on the cars. They're looking at a lot of data, so they're not concerned with getting out quite just yet. But we really hope to see them get out in these last 11 minutes of the session so that we can see what their times are, because the times are just changing, and it's great to see. We've got a Mercedes in first on softs, Verstappen in the Red Bull in second, Norris in McLaren in third on mediums, Aston Martin, Alonso in fourth, Russell in fifth, and Alfa Romeo in sixth right now. So a lot of spread of constructors as Perez now starts his hot lap on a set of softs. Will he go quicker than his teammate, and can he stay out of the wall?
Yes, let's see what Perez can do after having that shunt in FP1 yesterday. Twitchy on the steering wheel, possibly just fighting the wind a little bit. Verstappen on the radio saying, no grip. It is unbelievable. Perez 0.35 down on Hamilton's first sector time. Maybe a little bit better hooked up for Sergio Perez at the moment in his Red Bull. Let's see what he can do through this middle sector. Coming through turn 6 and 7 now. That very, very tricky that right and left-hander chicane coming through turn 8 and now 9 now. Looking very hooked up through there. Let's see what he can do as he comes across the middle sector marker. Let's see what his lap time is. Is he up? 0.1 down on Hamilton.
Almost
so still
0.2.
ever so slightly behind. Almost 0.2, yes.
Yeah, so it's not going to be quicker than Hamilton. I think he'll be quicker than Norris, but I'm not sure he'll be quicker than the top 2 as he comes around the final couple of corners here. Just traffic getting out the way as we hit just 10 minutes to go in the session. And again, guys, keep liking the video and subscribing to the channel. Let's keep getting those numbers up. We're up to almost 750.
Perez does go into third now with a 118. 0.263 down on Hamilton's fastest lap.
Yeah, so a bit of a concern there for Red Bull, because both drivers have gone more than 0.25 seconds slower than Hamilton. And I don't think they were holding back anything. I think that was a genuine qualifying attempt. So scary numbers here, and I really want to see what Ferrari can do as well. As I'm now on board with an Alfa Romeo here. I think this is Guan Yu Zhou. He's on hards, and again, we saw hard tires earlier from them. Let's see how they could fare now. Very interesting that their hard tire runs seem to be quite quick. And let's see how far away it is from Hamilton. 0.7. Okay, it's a little bit slower than their earlier runs, so not needing to follow it too much. But yeah, hopefully the Ferraris get out there on softs very soon, and we can see what their times can be.
Yes, we haven't seen too much running for the Ferraris out there, so hopefully they do get out soon. We have both of the AlphaTauris getting out on track now, Tsunoda and Ricciardo leaving. Let's see what Ricciardo is able to do. Not too far off of his teammate, 0.2 to 0.3 seconds off of him right now. So a little bit off the pace, but not too bad for his first race weekend in 10 months.
No, not at all. You know what, guys? I think it's time to spam the chat. Spam the chat. Who is going to win qualifying? Who's going to come first? Who's going to be on pole for tomorrow in Budapest? Spam the chat. Let's go. Let's go see those numbers. Let's go see those names. And I want to see who we're backing to finish on pole. As shown across the line, a 120. Literally almost on the dot there for Guan Yu Zhou. So not too bad a lap on hards. It was actually 119.97, sorry. But yeah, I don't think it was too bad a lap from him on hard tires. So yeah, we'll see what happens. Now watching Max Verstappen's got a new set of tires on. I'm interested to know if these are going to be softs or if they're going to be mediums. Maybe just trying to do some quali sims on the other tires as well.
I mean, it's interesting to see the track dominance between Hamilton and Verstappen. Hamilton is quite a lot faster through the majority of the track, especially down those long straights, whereas Verstappen is faster in some of those very, very tight corners. But, I mean, yeah, interesting to see the Mercedes seem to have found some pace out there.
Yeah.
Norris' time, though, still holding up in P4.
Yeah, so I say it's really not far off, is it? Only 0.27 seconds on a set of mediums. Really not bad. See the comments here going and saying who they're backing for pole position. Sorry, Sainz is on the radio here. Yes.
Sainz has got a piece of tear off in his rear wing there. It may just disrupt the airflow ever so slightly.
It's so minimal.
I mean, these cars are so sensitive to anything. But, I mean, it'll pretty much just get, like, shrink-wrapped now around the back of the car. We can see it flying around as he starts a hot lap. Hopefully it will fly off, but it doesn't seem to be anytime soon right now.
It seems quite stubborn right now. But I see a whole lot of people backing a whole lot of different drivers in the chat for who's going to come first later today in qualifying. We've got Nando, we've got Max, we've got Leclerc, we've got Ricciardo, I doubt it, Gasly, Leclerc, Lando or Charles Leclerc, Max or Lando or Charles Leclerc, Hamilton or Norris, Lando or Charles.
Sainz up in the first sector. Sainz fastest in the first sector at the moment on a set of softs. This could be very interesting. Let's see what Ferrari can do. I mean, they're looking quite competitive at the moment. Coming through the middle sector now through turn 10 and 11, getting close to that middle sector marker. Let's see this lap time. Leclerc 0.1 down. Sainz just waiting for him now. I think we've got
eyes on Sainz. Although a purple sector's been put up by somebody else because Sainz has lost his purple sector. It's to Magnussen. Magnussen has gone quickest in the first sector.
Wow, I mean, very interesting from the Haas over there. Charles Leclerc comes across the line now, moves himself only up into P6.
Oh, dear.
Quite a bit off there. That top 5 is very competitive at the moment.
Both Ferraris just lost so much
down
time.
In the middle sector though. Sainz only in P7.
Yeah, I mean, it's quite interesting. The Ferraris went so quickly around the first sector and then just lost so much time in the second and third sector. So, I'm sure maybe a couple of things went wrong. Maybe they're dealing with traffic. I don't know. Magnussen's going around quite quickly here. Let's see if he can get closer to the top of the grid there as he comes across the line. Looks going to be a 118, it's quite slow, unfortunately. Lost a lot of time in that last sector there. Hulkenberg's teammate, though, following on. He seems to be doing quite well. Let's see how he can fare as he comes across the line now. It's going to be a 117, I think, a 118.
Brilliant.
Oh, my word. Great race.
18.0.
Great drive.
For Hulkenberg.
Yeah, 118.0 there for Hulkenberg. He moves himself into 4th position as we're nearing the end of the session. Just 5 minutes left. Whole lot of people.
Almost at 900 viewers now for FP3. Please do be sure to join us for qualifying later this afternoon. Please do come to our channel for all of your Formula One needs and wants. Of course, we cover every single session and we start quite early. So, yeah.
I see why the Ferraris lost time. Sorry.
Yes, he went quite wide over that curb, unfortunately.
Yeah, bottomed out very badly, so that would have cost a good 0.3 seconds, I reckon. So, Not too much concern then for the Ferraris. I think they can certainly challenge the Mercedes and Red Bull times. So it's actually really, basing off these times, going to be a very, very interesting qualifying session later. So we almost got 900 viewers here, people. So do be sure to stay as you guys get to the end of the session. We're going to review the session as well as give our predictions for qualifying as a result on a separate stream. We're going to start our qualifying stream straight away. So be sure to stay around and chat to us in the comments for that so we can predict all together what's going to happen in qualifying later. Just 4 minutes left of the session. Piastri crossed the line, 0.9 seconds slower than Hamilton, but on mediums, so quite a bit slower than his teammate Norris, who was only 0.27 seconds slower. So Tom Stullard, the race engineer there for McLaren, is going to be certainly analysing that and seeing why it is that Piastri went a little bit slower there. And
lots of Plovers paint on Daniel Ricciardo's suspension and front nose, some of the areas where they have brought upgrades to this race weekend. So possibly this afternoon he's just been doing a lot of testing. That's possibly why they've been so far off the pace. Up in 18th at the moment, up on his teammate, Mark.
Yeah, he is slightly up on his teammate, which is great to see. We're just looking at track dominance between the two. And Ricciardo is generally, I think, quicker through most of the turns. But Yuki Tsunoda just got a little bit of track dominance in a couple of them as well. So it's fairly evenly split, though. I think Ricciardo's just ahead of his teammate right now. With just 3 minutes left of the session, will we see any times topple right near the top there, Reese, or do you think we've seen our quickest times for the session?
I mean, I don't think you can ever predict anything here. As we now hit 900 viewers alongside us, thank you very much for joining the stream. Please do be sure to stick around. We have still a lot to talk about, as we see Carlos Sainz now at the end of the pit lane, possibly doing a practice start there, as he does do a practice start, getting away there on a used set of softs, going out for some more hot laps. Hamilton, a replay of him coming through the middle sector. Let's see what happens to him. Oh, he just gets caught out by a lot of traffic there.
And unfortunately, I can't really see them getting out of the way much more than where they have done, because it's quite difficult in that part of the track. Although I think the Ferrari there, right at the end of the pit lane, I think he's probably the problem. But yeah, just having to put up with a bit of traffic at the end there. A bit difficult for them all to get out of the way, though. So I can't really complain too much. It's just really unfortunate timing.
Ricciardo on a hot lap now, looking very, very hooked up. Well within track limits. Let's see what he can do through the middle sector. Up on his first sector time. Didn't see what that actual time was, but let's see what he can do through the middle sector compared to Hamilton's fastest lap time.
Indeed, and yeah,
coming
Ricciardo...
through turn 9 at the moment. Yeah, sorry, Mark.
No, sorry. Ricciardo certainly going to look to try and beat his teammate.
He's backed off.
He has backed off. Oh, it's upsetting. Oh dear.
Yeah.
We don't get to see. Maybe he's going to build up for another run.
I think he may just have another attempt here. He's got 1 minute and 30 to get around and cross that finish line to start another hot lap. He has more than enough time.
Speaking of starting a hot lap, Alonso has just started his last hot lap of the session. Maybe he can push himself right near the top again, because he managed to get himself right near the top earlier before all those new times came in. Will he beat those times? Going to be very interesting to follow.
Danny Rick comes into the pit lane, unfortunately, so we won't see a push lap from him here this afternoon. We'll see later in, of course, which is very, very exciting with that new qualifying format. So please do be sure to stick around. It's going to be super, super exciting. 930 of you watching alongside us at the moment. Please do be sure to hit that like button and subscribe if you enjoy the content that we're putting out for you. Ricciardo actually not going back into the pits. He's gone straight to the end to do another practice start, and he's going to go around again.
Yeah, very interesting. So hopefully we'll see a quick time from him get put in. Let's follow his teammate though. Yuki Tsunoda. Perez has gone quicker than Hamilton in sector 1, so that's notably very interesting. We're going to see these times tumble, I think, right near the edge. Tsunoda crosses the line very slow, 1.4 seconds behind on a set of mediums, so quite slow there for Yuki Tsunoda. Now on board with Sergio Perez, coming towards the end of sector 2. Let's see how he fares. Will he go quicker than Hamilton again, Reese? Let's see. And he...
No, 0.1 down.
Just 0.1 down. It's the second sector. I think Hamilton's nailed it. I think that's why he still goes quicker than most of them, though. Verstappen is also going around. Let's see how Verstappen fares as we're finishing up the session. It is now currently finished, so they're going to finish these laps and we'll have our final times. Perez now coming around the final corner. Sainz is also following in hot pursuit Let's see if they can beat Hamilton's time. Perez crosses the line and not able to beat Hamilton's time.
Russell also stays where he is. Carlos Sainz now finishing up his lap. Where will he finish? He also stays in 8.6 seconds behind Lewis Hamilton's time on that run. Interesting to see Hamilton has held on to that lap time. Max Verstappen finishes another lap and sticks to where he is. Hamilton also finishes a lap and stays exactly where he is too. Going to be very interesting to see. Watching a restart from Daniel Ricciardo, looking quite good there on the restart. And then, that Zhou gets very hard on the back there. Zhou complaining that Ricciardo nearly went into the back of him. But I mean, what do you expect from him? You stopped out on track.
I think the problem was the show stopped because he got given the blue light marker from somebody starting their hot lap. So it was actually a bit of a difficult one for both of them, because Daniel Ricciardo's thinking, I need to get out there so I can start my lap, and at the same time Zhou's thinking, I need to back off because this driver's about to come through on the apex. So I think just a bit caught between the two. So I don't think anybody's really at fault, but luckily no collision was caused. So Mercedes finish free practice 3 on top, number 1, and free practice 2, of course, Ferrari finished on top. So Red Bull going to need to find a bit of pace. I'm sure we will see them find pace, of course, in qualifying later. It's a very different qualifying session, and we're so excited to see what happens in it. So don't go anywhere. We're going to go straight across to that stream, and we're going to review exactly what happened in the session and give our predictions for qualifying for all of you. So don't go anywhere, and if you guys are new to the channel, be sure to subscribe and turn on notifications. And we are going to go and probably end here. Reese, just a couple of final thoughts before we head on into our review.
Yes, well, it's certainly a very interesting session. They're having Hamilton up on top. With Verstappen and Perez not too far off, but still a little bit of a break between those two. 0.2 seconds to 0.25 is what the gap is, with drivers now making their way to do some practice starts. It was a very interesting session, and please do stick around for our race review.
Indeed.
Or our session review.
Yes. Anyway, guys, thank you so much for watching. We're going to